welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, characters, themes, theories, and more.
I'm Lexi, older sister and fantasy lore nerd.
And I'm Nicole, younger sister and romantic at heart.
And today is episode 5 as we deep dive Glow of the Everflame by Penn Cole, covering chapters 29 through 37. Just in case this is your first time tuning into our Kindred's Curse Saga coverage, these deep dive episodes have spoilers for all 3 released books in the Kindred's Curse Saga, which means spoilers for Spark, Glow, and Heat of the Everflame.
So, if you don't know about the explosion at Diem's family's house and why it is very important, please go finish the series. We will be here when you're done, probably still crying.
Next, we of Fantasy Fangirls are adults who say adult things about adult books. In other words, friends, this podcast is rated R.
Speaking of crying, do you want to listen to 2 women cry today? It's a different kind of wetness than we're used to on this podcast. So please be mindful of those little listening ears.
Wow. Additionally, we are so excited to see you at upcoming live events. Nicole and I are hosting an Emarion-themed trivia in Boulder, Colorado on July 10th. It is sold out, but there's a waitlist that you can sign up for. We will be featured guests at Enchanticon in St. Louis, Missouri, August 15th through 17th.
Then we will be at the Everflame Ball along with Penn Cole, author of the Kindred's Curse Saga, for the first ever Kindred's Curse Saga Ball on August 30th in Castle Rock, Colorado. Then we will be back at the Dragon Gauntlet in Boyne City, Michigan, September 12th through 13th.
Then Romantasy BookCon in Orlando, Florida, October 23rd through 25th, where we're interviewing Rebecca Yarros again at Disney World. And on March 6th through 8th in 2026 in Dallas, Texas, we will be podcast partners at Dreamers and Readers Festival.
Check out our website or the links below for more information to all of these events, plus discount codes for some of them as well.
Last thing before we jump into this Glow of the Everflame episode 5, if you love Fantasy Fangirls and want more events, more content, more community, and just so much more all around, please check out Fantasy Fan Club.
We have 3 membership tiers that you can join. Number 1, The Descended, which includes access to our Boppin' Discord, live Q&As from Lexi and myself, book club, exclusive author interviews, community events, promo codes for live events, plus exclusive designs and 20% off all merch. We're about to do a huge merch drop this month. We're so excited. So you could get 20% off of all of that. That is for $6 a month. Or you could join the Royal Family, which includes everything from the Descended level, plus early access to ad-free episodes, our full episode outlines, and special voting privileges. That is for $10 a month. And last but not least, we have our Crowns Council, which includes everything from the previous 2 tiers, plus more behind-the-scenes content, a welcome gift, giveaways, a private Discord channel, and your name shouted out on the podcast. And that is for $25 a month.
Join the party at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes. And really and truly, I know we say this every single episode, but it means the absolute world to us for you to support us. And this has become our livelihood, and it's all because of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And now we don our detective hats and try to figure out who killed Andre Bellator.
To start off every episode, Nicole does us the honor of summarizing this stretch of chapters. So gather around as we consult with our royal advisors to discuss what happens in chapters 29 through 37 of Glow of the Everflame. Are you ready, Nicole?
Nope, I'm not.
Okay, take it away.
Chapter 29. Who needs to sleep off a ball when you could go to a business meeting instead? The house receptions have officially begun. I hope you drank a Red Bull, Diem, because you're gonna need some wings to stay on the high ground. But on the way to their meeting, Diem and Eleanor take a ride on the gossip train. First stop, boys. Who else likes to gossip? Andre. In the meeting room, Diem's father is spilling all the embarrassing stories about her childhood. But the family vibes don't last long when Evrim Benette and his advisors enter. Tensions quickly rise when Evrim says he wants to enlist all the mortals into the army. More soldiers equals more weapons. And who is a prominent weapons dealer? Mr. Eugene Krabs, aiming for his millionth dollar. The evening does not end as well as Diem hoped. After pissing off Evrim Krabs himself, himself, her father decides it's best for him to step down as her advisor. Chapter 30. Down in the dungeon, Lily is giving Teller the not-so-TLDR on everything that went down during the ball when Alix rushes down the stairs to get Diem to her family home. Diem doesn't want to believe all of her anxieties, but when she and Alix arrive at her home on the march, Diem's worst fears are confirmed. Andre Bellator has been murdered in cold blood. Deep in her grief, Diem explodes with power, obliterating everything it touches and leaving nothing left of her child at home but glittering onyx rock. Chapter 31. 4 days later. Diem is absolutely overwhelmed with the loss of the only father she has ever known. What's worse, Diem and Teller have no idea who did it. Don't worry, Detective Lexi and Nicole are coming in hot today. Sadly, there is no more time for grieving. The house receptions are back on. So Diem does what big sisters do best. Stuff down her pain and throws on her not-so-metaphorical crown and attempts not to kill any of her enemies. Today's enemy, House Hanoverre, who is not making it easy to hold back murder, as they call for the end of the mortals in the realm or risk a challenge. No one is surprised when Diem says, "Bring on the challenge, bitches!" Chapter 32. Without a body to lay to rest, Diem honors her father's burial with 2 twin daggers that she took from him as a child. When the stories and tears both are dried up, Diem asks Moira to take in Teller in case she does not survive the challenging. Right when Diem is ready to wrap things up, Henri finally arrives. But he brought an unwanted guest with him. Vance is here and he wants to make a move on the Descended now. Oh, get ready for a doozy of a Henri hat today. Chapter 33. Diem's training continues and it's still bad. Don't worry, Taryn has a plan. Annoy Diem into using her powers instead. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. Diem is numb, empty, and basically grinding through grief with the enthusiasm of a damp sock. Later, down in the underground canal, Diem meets with Vance and Henri to go over the plan. The plan? Vance is going to do something on the boat at some point, and Diem may or may not be on it when it happens. Yeah, I would not be getting on that boat ever. But Diem cannot get any more vague details because her and her 2 companions must outrun the guards who finally decided to do their jobs, I guess. And who keeps running? Vance and Henri. Far, far away from Diem. Fuck you guys. Chapter 34. It's nearly 2 weeks since Andre's funeral, and Eleanor pulls out all the stops for emotional support picnic, featuring blankets, sweets, musics, and a Gryvern-filled joyride for Teller and Lily. Good friend points to Eleanor. But even Eleanor's attempts to cheer Diem up, it is no use. Diem is convinced she won't make it out of the challenging alive, but the challenge waits for no one, and the house receps keep on coming, and they don't stop coming. It's House Burnham's turn, and things quickly turn smash south when it slips that Remis is going to marry Lily off to the Burnham son with anger issues. A livid Luther steps in, ready to fight for his sister's free will, even if it means drawing his sword on his own father. Chapter 35. Diem and Lily take a trip to the Healer Center to drop off some inventory in exchange for some time in the workroom. Lily is thriving in her healer lessons and even questions the oppressive laws. Hooray for knowledge! Back at magic training, Diem is still completely and utterly failing, and Taryn knows why. The godhood is tied to emotions, and Diem is numb. No emotion, no godhood, no aliveness for Diem. Lock Diem and Luther in a room for a few hours, and I bet she'll have all the emotions then. Or at least another damn good foot massage. Using the fact that Diem and Luther just need to fuck each other already, Taryn swoops in as the wingman for his best friend, but his plan backfires, and Diem walks away to sulk over her highly possible death in just 3 days. Chapter 36. It's the final day of the house receptions, and it's time for House Ghislaine. Being a minor house with major coin, they are the last people Diem needs drama from. After a meeting that absolutely could have been an email, Diem learns that Luther has been stripped of all of his titles, and Remis is in his "I want to keep my power, damn it" tantrum, so why not remove all of her trusted advisors from her council? And who do we replace Luther with? Oh, the one and only Eamon Corbois. You know, the guy who's never served a day in his life in the Royal Guard and is now High General. Chapter 37. Diem and co, minus Luther, are readying a game plan for worst case scenario. Diem doesn't survive the challenging, but Loverboy is one step ahead. Luther is in Luno City trying to persuade the other houses against a challenge for Diem. Desperate to find her center, Diem grabs the Miros compass, a fantasy compass, and jumps on Sarai's back, ready to discover what a girl wants wants, what a girl needs. And no, Diem, it's not Henri. Shocking! Hopping off Sarai, Diem finds herself at the ruins of her childhood home. And it's only when Diem reaches the center of the crater that the compass lights up in a blinding glow. Hey, isn't that the name of this book? The one thing Diem wants most is gone. And finally, Diem's emotionless walls start to break down. But it's not until Teller is by her side that Diem's walls crumble and she's finally ready to fight. Later that evening, Diem, with the help of a very sassy Sarai, finally gains the courage to ask the orb of answering the hard-hitting questions. Are her mother and birth father still alive? Which Diem gets one single word in response. Yes.
Friends, it is time to reach for our foraging magic and unravel key insights, character analysis, lore, foreshadowing, theories, speculations, and so much more. But before we begin, let's do what we've started doing at the top of these segments and have a quick timeline check-in. It is 6 days since King Ulthar died and Diem received the crown, 2 days after the funeral and cousin's dinner party, and 1 day after the Ascension Ball.
Can you imagine having a huge ball where you are the center of attention and then the next day doing a major business meeting?
No!
No!
Absolutely not!
You couldn't
I
either.
need like 3 business days to recover from something like that. First of these 20 house receptions is House Benette. Remember that these reception meetings are scheduled in order of house importance and influence, so Benette is at the top of the list. With this being the first meeting, it's also the first time the Crown's Council is formally all together at Diem's side. Eleanor is here for her role as advisor of court and culture, as Diem reminds Remis and Garath, who are like, well, what the fuck is she doing here?
And to be honest, she's already doing more to help Diem prep for these meetings than everyone combined. And yes, that is me saying something very nice about Eleanor. She's giving Diem advice on how to get on Evrim Benette's good side. Not to insult him, but to woo him instead. It all goes out the window the second he starts talking about the mortals, but at least she tried and it worked for like 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Luther's
also here as Diem's High General, which she confirmed for the first time at the ball last night, and he is just holding on to that with everything he's got.
This is a slip that Diem said very much accidentally, showing just how much her subconscious is like, yes, him, please, yes, keep someone like him close. Very close, Diem.
Luther's also the late King's Warden of Light, but I feel like that's never mentioned.
My guess is that this is why Luther made 1.5 million speeches at the funeral, since like the Warden of the Light is the more public-facing warden. But this is a really good point, because it's not really ever mentioned after the funeral, I feel like.
Anyway, well, he was also the closest to Ulthar, so I could see that also being why he was so prominent during the funeral. Anyway, just something I noticed. Garath is here because he is part of the Old Crown's Council as the Warden of Shadow. And until Diem is coronated, he and Remis are still in their positions of power, with Remis, of course, serving as Regent of the Realm. Now, Diem and Remis' strategy of her acting docile so the attention stays focused on Remis, that went out the window at last night's Ascension Ball with the Hanoverres. But they still had their deal, where Remis is going to do everything in his power to ensure Diem becomes queen and is not challenged, which still includes taking the lead with these house receptions, considering he already has long-standing relationships with these other Lumnos descended. Taryn and Aemon are here as well, but I think it's because they are important figures of this house, and we know Ulthar only allowed his closest family members on the Crown's Council, so they don't have official titles at this time.
In my headcanon, Ulthar wanted to keep Gareth's 2 sons close so he could keep an eye on them and make sure they were okay. And then when Remis took over, he just kept what King Ulthar wished, and when he fell ill and all that stuff. But that's my headcanon. I don't know. That makes me like Ulthar a little more.
All right, yeah.
But not everyone present is descended. After the funeral, when Diem was alone with her father, thank you, Luther, she asked Andre to serve as her military advisor, because in Diem's eyes, she was just technically continuing King Ulthar's reign when it came to having Andre's advice. But Andre was only an advisor to Ulthar in private. And at first, this seems like such a great idea. Andre's getting along with her new descended family so well. Taryn has Andre in a good-natured headlock, while Eleanor holds his hand, and the 3 of them nearly are in tears listening to stories of little Diem. And Diem's heart is soaring. She's seeing her family bonding. It's wonderful. However, we are exactly 1 week, finally 1 week from the armory attack. An attack that was done by mortals on the Benette armory, the family she's about to meet with. So having a mortal on the council in a position of a military advisor nonetheless, it might as well just say to the others, specifically the Benette family, that Diem sides with the mortals on that attack. But wait, there's more. Number 1, the other houses have wanted a seat on the council for centuries. So to have a mortal surpass them and be able to jump to that position is like a slap in the face. And number 2, because as Luther points out, once she introduces him as her advisor, all the houses are going to want to know everything there is to know about him, including who he is to Diem. Ugh, how convenient it is that House Benette and House Hanoverre now know exactly who Andre is. House Benette from the meeting and House Hanoverre from the ball last night from Jean. More on that later when we talk about who Andre's murderer was. But as Diem won't hear any protests against appointing her father to the council, in walks Evrim. Unlike the Hanoverres, Evrim isn't walking in ready to stir shit up. In fact, he actually offers to Diem that, if House Courbois isn't providing what she needs, House Benette would actually love for you to step in and be a part of her family. He wants power, full stop. He wants a seat at the royal table. But hold up. This is a blatant sign for our Courbois family that no one is buying the shit that she is a true Courbois. Instead, she's just jumping to the house that she can attach herself to. Diem declines. After all, she is loyal to her family.
Such a double meaning there.
Yeah. If I was Remis, I would be like, fuck. So Evrim is back into his tactics going into the meeting. Does he like the mortals? No, not really, especially after they blew up his armory. But he doesn't hate them as much as, say the Hanoverres. But what does he like? Money! He knows that if a war against the mortals escalates, the more soldiers there will be, and the more afraid everyone is, the more weapons people will buy, and the richer he will be as a result. With money being their prime motivation, it does make them one of the easiest houses to manipulate, but also one of the angriest at this time. Firstly, because since the month's author has gone ill and Remis took over, things have not been going so well. Business in Umbros, I'm assuming via the black market, is overshadowing the Benette business. We learned this last book when Evrim Benette said that the last 3 shipments were missing half of what he had ordered due to the attack on Miros from the Guardians, and he might as well turn to Umbros now to fulfill his orders. But also his top clienteles are receiving threats. Pause! Because remember last book, Diem jotted down names from the ledger in his office. So I wonder if the Guardians are using that ledger to now threaten those clients. I think so!
I did not catch that. That is such a good catch. Oh my goodness, holy moly.
Now, to be fair, Evrim is blaming Remis for a lot of these issues that he's having right now with the current reign, and it's not entirely Remis's fault. But because Remis hasn't done anything to stomp out the Guardians, Evrim blames him for how things have quickly gotten worse.
It's also interesting how the timing aligns with Vance taking over for Orly. I know Remis has been ruling longer than her disappearance because the king was on his deathbed months ago, but things have gotten way more aggressive since Orly left and Vance is in charge.
Yeah. Which also, speaking of Vance, literally 7 days ago, crates and crates and crates of Evrim's supplies were stolen. His guards were murdered or injured. Have I mentioned his armory exploded? That set him back months in, let's be real, the only thing he cares about, months in payments and money. He is not ready to let that go without some major punishment.
Evrim states outright that he doesn't want to prevent further violence with the mortals, especially those responsible for the attack on his armory. He wants to find and torture the Guardians until they reveal everyone in their network, and then he wants every Guardian found and publicly and gruesomely executed. Yeah, that's definitely the opposite of preventing further violence. And as House Courbois will later acknowledge, believing the Descended have a goal of keeping the peace was naive of them. Tensions are brewing between the Mortals and Descended more than they ever have since the Blood War centuries ago, and both sides are out for blood. Evrim doesn't stop there, though. He wants to imprison the families of the Guardians as well, to send a message to the rest of the Mortals about what will happen if they cross the Descended. In other words, Evrim wants the Descended to rule over the Mortals with fear, believing that the Descended have a divine right to rule over the mortals as they see fit. He's pissed that these rebels are targeting him, and he's ready and insistent that the Descended hit the mortals back 10 times harder to make them learn the consequences of not knowing their place. Shifting to what we know about the Guardians and their mission, especially under Vance with his more violent ways, this line of thinking from the Descended is exactly why the rebels are fighting violence with violence. They are taking these drastic measures to rise up to their oppressors and say, you can't control us. You aren't as strong as you think you are. And as we've endlessly talked about, the sentiment behind this rebellion is morally right. And both sides are convinced the only way to send a message is with violence.
And on top of all of that, Evrim wants every single eligible mortal rounded up and forcibly enlisted in the Emarion army, regardless of where they stand against the attacks, against the Guardians, anything. Evrim knows that more bodies that join the army means more weapons needed in said army. And how would the army get more weapons to arm these new soldiers? Ah, yes, buying them from House Benette, of course, whose entire business is in weapons. Take that, black market of Umbros. He is personally invested in fanning the flames of this war so that he can get more money to line his pockets.
Except, as Andre speaks up, forcing mortals to fight this war for the Descended, it's not so simple, and may lead to even more problems. Conscripting unwilling soldiers can do more harm than good, because it's inviting rebel sympathizers to work from within the army. They very well might sabotage missions or divert weapons to the Guardians. This is already happening, like with Breck. This is solid advice from the highest ranking mortal in the Emarion army. Being part of the Emarion army already has a reputation for being on the Descended side, unless you're working from within already, again like Breck and others. And with things getting worse between the Descended and mortals, it's not so simple to make the mortals fight their own people who are standing up against the oppression they all face. Andre and many others in the army, including some of his old friends, will meet at the upcoming funeral. They are dedicated to keeping their people safe. The Guardians see this as a betrayal of the mortals, because keeping their people safe means keeping them in oppression, keeping things the way they are because anything else is too risky for the mortals' long-term well-being, aka the fight against the oppressors isn't worth it. Andre doesn't glorify war. He sees it for the violence, death, and destruction that it is. And to him, and again, many others in the Emarion army, starting a war against the Descended, it's not worth the dire consequences.
But like we mentioned earlier, more bodies in this war equals more weapons needed. And Evrim doesn't see what Andre is bringing up as any issue. He sees it as kill, literally, two birds with one stone. His business is back and thriving. The Guardians who ruined it in the first place are going to be taken out.
And with mortals conscripted into the army, there's fewer of them left in Lumnos, fewer threats, fewer issues for him. And again, he's like, I don't give a shit where they are as long as they're not here.
Yeah. I agree with Diem. I am so proud of Andre, a mortal, for speaking up in a room full of Descended. That is amazing. And it was just the one thing that he said that made Evrim want to double down on his decision. He's outright dismissing Andre now. Again, this is like blatant instance of us versus them. Andre is on the royal council, and yet Evrim is dismissing them and still viewing him as beneath him.
Which is no surprise whatsoever.
No,
you'd also think maybe Evrim knows who Andre is with his close business ties to the army. But nope, he doesn't give two shits that Andre is the most decorated mortal ever in the Emarion army because he's mortal.
Well, and just like Luther and Andre warned Diem, Evrim is now looping the new queen in with the mortals, wondering if maybe House Benette should challenge her after all.
Especially because he is insisting that the Descended show their strength of power and demonstrate how the Descended are above the mortals. And here's a new crown who has zero interest in that, instead giving the mortals power by this council appointment. Evrim sees that as weak for a crown in all the worst ways, and especially bad for his business.
Seeing the challenging on the horizon, which Remis is trying to avoid because he wants Diem on the throne since he believes she's easier to control than Luther, Remis offers up a compromise. If the mortals work for the 20 houses, they will not be conscripted into the army. Later, we will learn that if all the mortals leave, like the Hanoverres want, the houses are SOL because of the, quote, cheap labor they are for the Descended. So literally Remis is like, this is the best for the Descended houses so they won't get pissed and want to challenge Diem since they'll still have their seamstresses, their gardeners, their courtiers, etc. But according to Remis, what about the innocent families of the rebels? How about we give them a week's notice to leave the realm? I'm sorry. What the fuck? A week? And if they stay longer than a week to pack up and move their entire lives elsewhere, no idea where, elsewhere. If they stay, they will be seen as standing in solidarity with the Guardians, and then they will be taken out. Oh my God.
But hold up! Did Remis really expect Diem to sit quietly and accept this compromise? It's still forcing innocent people out of their home, tearing families apart. And exceptions from army service for mortals who work for the 20 houses only helps the 20 houses. You know, like the most wealthy people of the realm. It doesn't solve the problem that Andre brought up. I think Remis is still under the impression Diem cares more for her own life, aka surviving the challenging, than she does about the mortals. Comprehending anything else is a foreign concept to Remis, as well as most of the other Descended, despite his son Luther helping mortals right under his nose. Sensing Diem's temper, her godhood is like, oh hi. Bye. Leading light to form under Diem's palms with smoke and the smell of burning maple as she grips her chair. We get that familiar description of Diem's power that feels like frost and fire spreading across her skin, and her hand begins to shimmer. While Luther notices and subtly, silently tells her to keep it together, no one else does. Well, maybe her father, but that's off the page. No one else apparently thinks anything of this, as Evrim is like, meh, I'll take your counter offer under consideration. Once again, leaving me wondering if this glowing magic Diem has can be perceived as Lumnos light magic. Or is it actually Lumnos magic, and the sensation of frost and fire is not a hint about her Omnos silver fire magic, but rather a description for this unfamiliar feeling of doing any magic? Diem is pissed about what Evrim is requesting and what Remis is counter-offering, and it shows as she wears her emotions on her sleeve and separates herself from Remis, which is a really big deal that she just did that right there in the meeting.
After the meeting, everyone leaves except for Diem and Andre, and Andre gives her some fatherly advice, let's say. I say fatherly. This is really definitely more the commander than stepfather.
It's some tough love.
Let's talk about that in a second. He tells her that she wears her emotions on her sleeve and that her temper has always been her weakness. Now, pause. Is this an inaccurate statement? No, she does get angry very quickly, and she does wear all of her emotions on her sleeve. But Diem was also drugged for years, and all of her emotions were numbed out as a result, meaning she literally never learned how to make emotions her strength because she couldn't access them. I'm not saying this is all Arlie's fault, but I am saying maybe rather than pointing fingers at Diem, even if they maybe are accurate fingers, maybe Andre should practice some I statements. Instead of saying, you do this, you do that, maybe saying, I'm noticing this pattern that you do, or I'm noticing you fall into this pattern of behavior. He continues to say that he wants to resign as her advisor because she needs distance from the mortals. That I agree with. Yes.
I feel so bad even saying this because hindsight's always 20/20, but I think there's a better balance Diem could have struck. Yes, expressing sympathy for the mortals is a major risk to get challenged in and of itself. And she also appointed a mortal as her military advisor within a week of getting the crown and well before the challenging. The sentiment is there and it is good, but that was a big move this early in the game. And again, I understand her reasoning for wanting to have her father close, but yeah.
Well, let's talk about that reasoning, because she feels like she needs her father. She needs someone who she can trust in a room full of descended strangers. I get that. And then Andre comes back with a quote. You're being selfish. Again, those you statements, my guy. Learn an I statement, please. Quote, you're being selfish. Stop thinking about what you want and think about what's best for the realm. Ouch.
Ugh, this is so hard for Diem to hear. It would be so hard for any child to hear from a beloved parent. Diem didn't realize just how much she needs her father to be proud of her as queen. Have we mentioned that Diem is a fierce, independent woman? But she's also a young woman seeking comfort in the familiar and hoping to prove her worth to those she loves. This might not look the same as Diem desperately trying to hold on to Henri and agreeing to help the Guardians to keep him by her side, but it is the same sentiment of needing to be enough for her loved ones, especially when she is really lost. Diem is uniquely in a position of power, and she is determined to use it for good, to create real change for mortal kind, to push back on these descended beliefs of superiority and either open their minds to progress or get them out of power as she brings in this new reign. And damn it, she is trying her best, while still having to balance not completely pissing off these houses, including House Courbois, whose credibility and support she needs in order to survive to her coronation. So to hear her father say, does your anger actually help people, or is it making you feel righteous while the situation gets worse? It is such a gut punch for our girl. Andre may not say the words that he is disappointed in his daughter, but that is exactly what Diem latches onto in her hurt. She is emotionally charged right now and feels like she can't do anything right. One of the people she loves and trusts most is scolding her for being selfish and that she needs to think about what's best for the realm. Andre, where were you with this advice when she ran into Henri outside the palace mailroom?
Oh my god, that's so real though. In this scene, Diem is taking everything in absolutes. Later, she will be telling Teller that father called her selfish. And Teller will be like, that doesn't sound like father. And he's right, because Andre here isn't saying, Diem, you're selfish, like it's part of your DNA. He's instead saying, you're being selfish, which it's like an emotion that she's holding on to and can adjust. It's a small difference, but it's very powerful.
Absolutely. In all seriousness, we love Diem dearly and are in her corner. And Andre has a good point. Diem brought him on as an advisor first and foremost because she needs him near her. Without listening to the warnings that this is a bad idea to formally make Immortal her military advisor, at least right now, yes, it is a great idea and one that fits right into Diem's plan for the future.
Well, and as Diem puts it, she believes that Bellators are always stronger together, and there's nothing they couldn't take on as long as they are a family.
But there's that ever-present balance Diem needs to have, at least, again, right now in the lead-up to the challenging and coronation. And I think that's what Andre is really addressing here. His daughter is in a political battle, and she is leading with her emotions, which is the fastest way to lose a battle. So here he is being like, this is a battle and you need to win it. The only way to do so is to be smarter, more strategic. And I do love that while Diem is the one who is letting her emotions get the better of her in this metaphorical fight leading up to the challenging, during the actual challenging, she will be the bigger person who uses this tactic against her opponent, and she knows her father would be proud. It's a nice little, I'll call it full circle. I don't know if that's the right term, but yeah. But until then, Diem crumples inward at her father's words here because they're not what she wanted to hear. Not what she feels she needs to hear as she navigates these political waters with the 20 houses. And she demands her father go home, refusing to listen to him try to explain that her interpretation of his scolding advice is not what he meant. Exactly like what Nicole was saying. Oh, on a reread, this scene is just so heartbreaking.
Speaking of heartbreaking, prep your tissues, everyone. Because later that very day, while Diem is in the dungeons with Teller and Lily, Alix bursts in with a wild look in her eye. Immediately, Diem knows something is wrong, obviously. Even more so when Diem tells Teller to go home and it's met with an abrupt no. Diem's mind immediately begins to spin with possibilities, first traveling to Luther and his safety. But when Alix assures her that he's all right, her chest lifts. Oh, I don't think that this is in any way like a who does Diem love more. I think that this is just a show don't tell of how unshakable and indestructible she sees Andre to be. He is not on the initial list because he was always this immovable force.
But the way that Alix won't say more in front of Teller, it makes Diem worry about the unthinkable. And she recognizes that this has to be a bad incident involving her father. The terror of what she knows she's about to learn, it shatters my heart into a million pieces.
So first, they go to the royal suite and keep Teller and Lily in there guarded by our boy Perth. And together, Diem and Alix take Sarai until her cottage on the marsh comes into view. A place that was so happy and so full of memories now looks wholly different, with Luther standing at the front door, soaked in blood. On the front lawn, there are 3 dead descended wearing Royal Guard uniforms. Luther told Diem back in chapter 29 that he had his most loyal guards on Andre, Teller, and even Moira. So sadly, whoever murdered Andre was skilled enough to also take out these best guards as well. And Diem completely fractures open. She pushes aside Luther to get inside, and against his holy wishes, she needs to lay eyes on her father. Inside the home, there is blood everywhere. And written in that blood, using large, angry letters, read the words, mortal lover, half-breed, rebel, scum. And this is not just written on one wall, it is written on every wall. Then in the kitchen, oh boy, Andre's body lays. For our detective work, I am going to be going through his injuries. However, if you would rather not hear this, please skip ahead about 30 seconds. Andre's face is bruised and open in a scream of disbelief. His lip and eyebrow are both split open. There is tissue under his nails, suggesting that he struggled and fought back. And then there is a slit along his throat, likely the wound that would have killed him. However, littered over his body lay countless puncture wounds, most of them bloodless, telling the healer Diem that the murderer continued to stab Andre long after he was dead. This is no quick assassination. This is a message for Diem, a punishment for the new queen. But the murder weapon is still lodged in Andre's chest. Handle sticking straight up is a Fortosian steel dagger with a jewel-encrusted handle. On the blackwood hilt, inlaid with copper scrollwork, sat several pale pink gemstones.
Andre, the series' beloved father and army commander, is sadly no longer with us. Andre is one of my favorite book dads. He has passed invaluable lessons down to his children, which they apply in a fight and for life as a whole. He was a devoted father and a husband in love, an army commander who cared for his soldiers, and a strategic leader who did not glorify war or romanticize it. Andre may not have been perfect, but he did his best and took accountability for when his emotions got away from him. He unconditionally trusted his wife, maybe to a fault, but from his perspective, that was simply how trust and secrets worked with his relationship with Orly. They had so much love for one another, and that's what mattered most. No doubt about it, our dear Andre is gone from Emarion, from his family, and the story far too early. His murder leaves a hole in our hearts and causes a big shift in Diem and her brother that we will certainly continue discussing. He deserved better than this death fueled by hate, so may he live on in our memories. May we all remember his words of wisdom. If you cannot be strong, be smarter. Choose both your battles and your enemies with care. Know when to flee a fight to win a war. The world will try to disarm you. Do not let them. By wits or by weapons, be prepared at all times. If you are outnumbered or overwhelmed, or if all seems lost, just keep moving. Always just one step at a time until the very end. R.I.P. Andre Bellator, you will be missed. May your soul burn bright with the Everflame.
In Diem's agony, she fully surrenders to the grief overtaking her body and that voice chanting, fight, kill, destroy. So after getting Sarai to take Luther away, raw, silvery power blasts out of her in a sphere that is both hot and cold. It hissed with a deafening hum of energy that sounded and felt ancient. Ancient, you say? This ancient, cough, cough, kindred, cough, power obliterates everything in its path. The house is leveled and vaporized. The blood simmers then evaporates. Even Eamon Courbois' medallion around Diem's neck, Breck's blade at her thigh, and the murder weapon that is still in her hand, it all melts and turns to ash. Everything to even the clothes Diem and Luther are wearing are burned away. Yes, because did I mention, Luther comes back and kneels next to her, holding her skin completely unscathed, while laying tender kisses to her temple, while they're both naked and cuddling. I'm a puddle! Not that that's the important thing right now. And there the two of them remain for hours, clutching each other in a crater of glittering black. It is not until next book that we will learn from leaks. This is literally a huge pile of godstone that Diem just made. Something that can only be made by the kindred themselves.
Once again, we get this raw, silvery power that is all at once hot and cold, dark and light, life and death. I think it's safe to say this power is directly from the kindred, and I'm even going to venture that it's like their magic before the foraging spell. And because Diem is the offspring of the one sibling who is not bound to a realm, specific magic, and eye color, that same raw kindred power has passed down to her, which is why she is able to create this crater of godstone. And even how she made the wolf go poof, because that was like this, but on a way smaller scale. The only other times the voice, her godhood, has chanted destroy was when she had her big outburst of magic in the dungeons here in Glow, and right before the blinding light that poofed the wolf back in Spark. One of the biggest mysteries we're left with before the fourth and final book comes out is who killed Andre? So, time to put our detective hats on and go through the list of suspects. But first, let's recap what we know about this murder. First and foremost, if you're watching this on YouTube, I have a whole detective gear thing, including a pipe and a magnifying glass. Nicole's losing it. But Nicole and I can't help but point out that there is information in Heat of the Everflame that might offer additional context, because we cannot forget that Diem recognized the crown of Sofos, Doriel's dagger, as similar to the one that killed her dad. Doriel says it was a coronation gift from Ulthar, the previous king of Lumnos. At the crime scene here in Glow, more potential evidence is when Diem sees Andre dead and she observes there is tissue under his nails showing signs of a struggle, and his face is forever frozen in a mask of disbelief.
Well, like I said, there's also that Fertosian steel dagger with the jewel-encrusted handle. On the blackwood hilt, inlaid with copper scroll work, there is several pink gemstones. What's associated with a pale pink color? It is Sofos. So I decided to look up every instance of blackwood, which is the hilt, and scroll work, which is copper inlaid on the dagger, and see what comes up in the 3 books that we have so far. There's no other mention of Blackwood, so there's scratch that. But there is another time we see scroll work. It is golden as opposed to the copper we see here. And that is on the blade that Diem gets in Sofos. I find it very interesting that the other type of scroll work is a metal scroll work, golden versus copper, but that sword belonged to the kindred themselves? This feels important.
Right?
I don't know what
exactly.
it is.
It's like something's important here. Part of me wonders if the scroll work is like a nod to Sofos in particular.
Maybe, but that feels so kindred coded.
Yeah. I don't know. So, without further ado, let's walk through the list of suspects. Behind door number 1, we have House Benette. Evrim Benette, the leader of this house, openly opposed Andrei's appointment as Diem's military advisor and believed Andrei's presence in the room was an insult. House Benette is the only other house that we know has met Andre, and the timing is very suspicious, since Andre was killed later that day after this unsuccessful meeting. Evrim Benette is also the only one who said the words rebel scum in this book. And we know that is one of the 3 insults written on the walls at the crime scene. Evrim is personally angry at the rebels for their attack on his armory. Pair that with his anger at Andre for not agreeing with his retaliation tactic of enlisting all mortals in the army. House Benette stands to profit most from a war. How dare this mortal, who is sitting on the council, try to prevent that? And we all know Diem's now on his shit list because she is sympathetic to the mortals.
Well, and as Diem notes later, if the Guardians figure out that a descendant killed Andre Bellator, there would be outright retaliation. So he could be seeing this as fanning the flames to make the war bigger so that it kicks off the restarting of his business again, basically.
All right, so this is why House Benette is a top contender from Diem's perspective. But what makes Benette highly suspicious for us readers is because of the murder weapon. Benette is known for providing weapons to all of Lumnos, and toward the end of Heat of the Everflame, Diem recognizes a blade that the Sofos crown has because it's extremely similar to the blade that killed her father. The murder weapon is Fortosian steel with a jewel-encrusted handle and a blackwood hilt engraved with copper swirls and pale pink gemstones. The Sofos crown Doriel has a blade that, aside from the hilt being ivory instead of wood, is exactly the same as the other design. And what's more, Doriel received this blade from Lumnos as a coronation gift, which traces the maker of this weapon back to Lumnos. Who is in charge of weapons in Lumnos? House Benette.
Like you said, the pale pink gemstones being associated with Sofos. I don't think it would have been Sofos themselves killing Andre alone, which is why we're not even including them in our list. But we definitely could see them working with the Benettes, or at least having this weapon prepared for Sofos. But Benette instead decided to use it as the murder weapon to look sus and derail attention from it possibly being them. We know from last book in Spark of the Everflame, Benette was working with Sofos to make weapons that will rival the Guardians' bombs. But Evrim was not happy with how slow the process was going. So what if this blaming Sofos is a way to get back at Diem, yes, but also to get back at Sofos for wasting his time? So if it looks like Sofos killed Andre, Diem would instead turn her anger on them, not House Benette.
That's interesting, because also, as we talked about last episode, the Sofos representatives are staying with House Benette for a few extra days for business reasons. While I think it's likely they're connected in some way to the crime, like you're saying, I have a hard time believing the 2 Sofos representatives were the assassins. Sofos is known for its knowledge and inventions. They're not fighters. Perhaps this weapon was a gift to the Sofos reps, but it needed to be used as a murder weapon to throw off suspicion, again, like you're saying there, because it makes sense that this was a blade intended for Sofos, but it wasn't quite as fancy with the wood hilt versus the ivory like Doriel's coronation gift.
Next up on our suspect list is House Hanoverre. Last night at the Ascension Ball, when Diem showed Marth Hanoverre the door, basically, amid the hundreds of other reasons that the Hanoverres hate Diem, being handed their ass in front of the entire realm would absolutely put them at the top of the suspects. It makes sense. Also last episode, alone, Ileana said 2 of the 3 phrases written on the wall, mortal lover and half-breed, while Evrim said rebel scum. So that could be a hint that they're actually working together. But when the meeting with Benette went sideways, Evrim went to the Hanoverres and they decided to conspire together.
Which we already know they did talk, because Marth tells the Courbois that she spoke with Evrim after his meeting.
The fact that between Ileana and Evrim in 2 chapters say everything that was written on the wall at Andre's murder site, that is sus.
It's an obvious answer that can be found in Glow of the Everflame, like the author said.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Is it too obvious?
I don't know.
Rebecca Yarros really messed with her.
I know.
Benette will tell Hanoverre what goes down during his meeting, and then the same day the Hanoverres have a big meeting while Andre is killed, with a knife that looks like it's a gift from Sofos. And the Sofos representatives are staying with House Benette, the Lumnos weapons dealer. So I'm really leaning toward they're all in on it together. And what if Garath and / or Eamon is the one who fed info to Hanoverre about Diem's upbringing? Because House Hanoverre clearly knows way more about Diem than House Benette. Or what if it was Sofos who shared information about Diem's family, since they've proved they know about Diem's mortal brother Teller? Yeah!
Oh,
I know! I know! Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
Why doesn't Diem ask the Orb of Answers about who killed her father? Like, could that be her last question? I know it would have to be a yes or no, so there's that, but it could be how she uses her final question.
I love this. Yes, 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 yes. Oh my God. Hanoverre seems like the obvious answer, and that's the only reason why I'm thinking I don't think it would be them, or at least not them acting alone. Specifically because during the Hanoverre's meeting, they do have a pretty damn good alibi. That could be to throw us readers off. I mean, maybe that's just me trusting Pen. I don't know if I should on this. She's really fucking with my head. But the reason I'm leaning away from them, at least working alone, is they want public humiliation for Diem. And honestly, really, now House Courbois as a whole, now that Luther and Ileana aren't engaged anymore. House Hanoverre wants power, but they're also more patient and shrewd than this. However, as Andre's body is showing up a punishment for Diem, I could absolutely see them dish out this kind of cruelty, but it feels too obvious. I think that's why I'm leaning away from House Hanoverre, at least House Hanoverre acting alone. I think if anything, it was House Benette acting with Hanoverre.
Suspect number 3 is House Courbois, more specifically Remis and Garath and maybe Eamon. They are vying for control of the crown and want to weaken Diem. They don't like mortals and believe Diem is in their way of securing power. Garath in particular is very prejudiced against the mortals. He was openly disgusted with Andre's advisor appointment, and he will soon enough taunt Diem for her father's death. He is also known to call Diem a half-breed to her face, which was one of the insults written on the wall at the crime scene. But also, Eamon regularly uses this slur. I will say I don't think Eamon was personally involved, only because he's not a soldier, as Taryn will point out for why he's a terrible choice for High General, and whoever this assassin was clearly skilled with a blade.
Well, I mean, Andre was one of the highest ranking mortals in the Emarion army. Yeah, they would have to be very, very skilled to not only kill him, but also all the guards that Luther had on him.
On that note, though, it's not out of the question that Eamon is involved. Could he be relying on Diem thinking there's something good underneath, but perhaps that's a facade he's leaning on as he ensured her father is murdered? Could he be that pissed at her for dancing with Luther? So after he saw how the House Benette meeting went down, he was like, yep, fuck her. And then he will try to get back in her good graces after her father's death, like another attempted manipulation there where it's like, oh, she's weak and she needs somebody. Oh, it's me. And then there's also the fact that Eamon is very close with House Hanoverre too, especially Ileana, and he was hanging out with Jean, there's something there. But back to Remis and Garath, my 2 top contenders for House Courbois. We know what they're capable of after hearing the story about wiping out the house that poisoned Ulther's mate, and what they have done to members of their own family. These 2 are feeling threatened by Diem. She's too much of a wild card with her temper, assertiveness, and love for mortals. So this could be their way of knocking her down a peg, making her a shell of herself so they gain the upper hand again, all while removing the mortal advisor from their council. Riam's bargain with Diem is specific only about the challenging. Having her father killed wouldn't break the bonded bargain.
Now, I do want to point out that they want her on the throne, and if her spirits are broken and she loses the challenging, then Luther is most likely to get the throne. So are they thinking that that's like tomorrow's problem? However, if she is so broken that then they have to restart the 30-day cycle of the challenging, then they could be in control for even longer before she gets coordinated. So it's almost like they're seeing this as a 30-day reset.
I see this as they don't want her to be challenged, period. And if they break her before the challenging, then that's keeping her quiet and under their control during the house receptions and all of that. So she's less of a threat to be challenged in the first place.
Last but not least, suspect number 4, we have the Guardians. What? Something that is a real head scratcher for the top 3 suspects is that all of the murders were done gruesomely by weapons. Now, that could have been just because whoever did it wanted to make sure it was as bloody as possible to send that message to Diem, or it could be because the attackers didn't have magic at all. Instead, they had weapons, and damn good ones too, from a, recent heist where they ended up getting a whole buttload of them. Where did they get them from? Oh yes, the Benette Armory, where they absolutely could have gotten one that was potentially made for Sofos, and probably left that particular blade in there to derail expectations. We also know that last night, 200 guardians were prepared to take the palace, and then were mysteriously turned away. I can only imagine how furious Vance must have been after that, realization of, how'd we get back here? Also, we know from Penn last episode, Henri, at least of right now, is turning to Vance and a certain healer, and I would not be surprised if Henri told Vance about what happened with Diem and how Henri told Diem about the attack. So Vance put it together that Diem was the one who stopped the attack, and he's livid about this. This would be the type of punishment for someone who hurt the mission in a very Vance style. Vance already hated Andre. As we heard from Henri last book, the Guardians believe Andre to be a descended puppet. So in Vance's eyes, I could absolutely see this being killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Taking someone off the map who is about to go into war, at least as far as the Guardians knew, to stop the Guardians, because again, that's what Andre was going to be going back into the army for before he was appointed as advisor. This also might be one of the reasons that there's a clear surprise on Andre's face. Some of the attackers he would know from the village. Now pause. I do not think Henri was in this attack. There is no way, given how he acts with Diem later this episode. I truly do not think that.
And how Penn defends him and all of that. Like, he is a representative for the oppressed and the angry, conflicted nature that can have.
Yes.
She wouldn't make Henri kill Andre.
No, absolutely not.
I don't think so, at least.
But the way she talks about Vance, I absolutely see Vance being this kind of evil. And if it is Vance, I believe that's where Diem is finally going to kill him, or that is going to be part of Henri's redemption arc. He learns that Vance killed Diem's father, and Henri takes Vance out, maybe with Diem or with Luther or something like that. And that's where
that would be the most satisfying kill of all time.
But what about the words written on the wall? Because that's where the Guardians wouldn't write something like that unless they were trying to scare Diem and point her in the opposite direction. Because after all, if the crowns and the 20 most powerful houses are fighting each other, they're not focusing on the mortals, more specifically the Guardians, and therefore the Guardians can do more attacks.
I'll also add a big motivator for the Guardians to do this is to frame the Descended. So it serves as a reminder to Diem how vicious and terrible they are. It's Vance's brutal way of forcing Diem to get ruthless and vengeful against the Descended, making her go back to the Guardians and willingly aid them in their aggressive mission.
Okay, so knowing that we have the right to change our minds, who is your top suspect?
Oh my gosh. It's like I'm so torn. I will say I do think my top contender is Benette kind of like leading the charge, House Hanoverre supporting it, and with the, I'll even call it approval of like Remis and Garath. I will say at the same time though, the Guardians, like I would not be surprised if it ended up being Vance. Especially because no magic was used.
So when I think about it, I look at it from 2 different ways. I look at it from what's the most obvious answer, like on the page in glow, and that I absolutely agree with you. That feels like House Benette leading the charge. But then I look at the story-driven option, and that feels like the Guardians.
Let me add one more thing in here. As we're talking about, the magic and how it's missing from this crime scene, I do agree with you that it is probably bloody to send Diem a message. But what if it was a descended from a different realm who cannot use their magic? Yeah. Again, like, it doesn't make sense that it would be the Sofos only because...
But that would be like Fortos, I feel like. Yeah. Well, and maybe that's why he was surprised, is because, like, what, why? And it's like someone with red eyes, like, and that would surprise him considering he was going to be working with that. That's a great point.
Who's your top suspect?
I think the Guardians. I think the one I want it to be the most is the Guardians, but the one I think makes the most sense is driven House Benette. I don't think it is House Benette full stop. I think it would be House Benette working the puppet strings in the background with someone like a Fortos assassin or something like that coming in. But for me, I feel like the Guardians just makes the most sense, especially since they overpowered Andre and 2 other guards. There were 200 of them. It probably was not all of them. I definitely do not think 200 people stormed the march. That would have been insane. But a group of 20, Vance would have had no problem getting together a group of 20 people who were furious at last night's
But that's also
failure.
Orly's husband, though.
Okay, this is where I get a little Nicole about this. Are you ready?
Oh boy, okay.
So I have two options. One, we know that Vance is furious at Orly. He does not think that she moved fast enough. She also was married to an army commander. I can only imagine how furious Vance was for that wavering loyalty that it felt like Orly had in that way. So I could see Vance taking him out for that reason. And here's my crack theory. What if Vance was in love with Orly and he wanted to take out her husband for reasons? I don't think it's that. I definitely think it would be number one.
Okay.
I don't think he would have tried to kill her daughter in the way that he does if he was in love with Orly.
I don't know. I that is a fun theory, Nicole.
I am willingly admitting that is a fun theory, but I'm leaning far more into the former.
Diem's grief for the loss of her father, I don't even know how else to put it into words that is not described on the page. Something that Penn does beautifully and heartbreakingly is describing grief on the pages here. And, again, my heart is just shattered into a million pieces. Diem's father was her rock, one of the most important people in her life. Her explosion of magic was a physical manifestation of her emotions, her grief, her anger, her shame, her loss. And once she burns and burns until there are only embers, all she is left with is determination to show her father's killer just how deeply her blade can cut. Fast forward 4 days to Diem and Teller staying holed up in her royal chambers, cycling between painful grief and numbness. 4 days of processing that her father is no longer here. 4 days of worrying about who his killer is. 4 days of clutching her little brother as they go through this together.
The fact that during this time, Diem starts to view every descendant as a threat and enemy to her and Teller, including her newfound family. And I'm going to say it's not unlike the black and whiteness of Henri's anger. I'm not saying that to make Diem sound bad news bears. She is absolutely entitled to this way of looking at the world, especially right now. But it is more to show how Henri's anger and prejudice was rooted for him since childhood. And he didn't have that found family that Diem does to rewrite his viewing of all descended are evil. My heart breaks for Diem. And God, I feel like we're saying that a lot in this deep dive. But how she blames herself for her father's death is just shattering. Diem, in her mind, she allowed her father to come into the spotlight as her advisor. She wore black at the funeral, which had her siding with the mortals. She stood up for the mortals as the mortal lover on the walls would indicate during the meeting. And in her eyes, if she hadn't done any of that, Andre would still be alive. And for that reason, she is not wanting to take any more chances. With Teller's schoolwork piling up and Diem needing to go back to the house reception meetings, the two of them prepare for their first day back in the real world, only after 4 days. God, I can't even imagine. Diem has moved Teller into one of the small bedrooms in her royal suite, not allowing him out of her sight until their father's murderer is caught. Knowing that she can't keep Teller from school any longer, she runs to the pile of gifts from the Ascension Ball and grabs the blade from Fortos, the cure-all potion from Arboros, and the scarf of spider silk that cannot be penetrated, and she wraps it around Teller's major organs. While he refuses the knife, because no weapons allowed at school, he does take the rest to ease his older sister's comfort. While Diem is fussing, as Teller puts it, he is adopting that much older person persona. Like the commander's death slingshotted him into that full adulthood. We will really see this version of Teller for the rest of the series as we know it. Gone is the quiet youth we saw him from earlier in Spark. And not to sound like a broken record, but damn, my heart breaks for him too. And then it fully shatters with the next part. Diem has the opportunity to hold off the house receptions, thus basically restarting the 30-day period of the challenging. But Teller begs his older sister not to restart the clock. He is suffocating with anxiety over the internal countdown into the arena because there's this very high possibility that Diem won't make it through the challenging. And then Teller will be officially all alone. No father, no mother as far as he's concerned, and no Diem. Teller. I completely understand Teller's anxiety, especially since the longer Diem is not in full power, the more Remis and Garath and the Hanoverres and God knows what else they can do with the realm. If Diem had another 30 days, she could use that time to train her magic and be better in the arena. But I do understand why they didn't. I mean, obviously for storytelling purposes too. But resetting the clock, I can't even imagine what havoc Remis and Garath would have done in those 30 days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the last thing Diem wants is to cause her brother any more pain than he's already in. She may not be ready after her father's death to start up the house receptions again, but from her perspective, she doesn't have a choice. She is trying to protect Teller, both with ensuring she's on track for the challenging so she doesn't prolong her brother's suffocating anxiety, and in that she hasn't told Teller what Luther informed her of about their mother. That as far as Luther knows, Orly is alive, and he will bring her home by the end of the year. Diem doesn't want to set her brother up for more pain, and I absolutely get that, especially as a protective older sister. And Teller is not a child, as he will have to remind his sister sometimes. I don't know, I think telling him would have been better. Like, that's probably what I would have done. It's something they can hold on to together, and a last sliver of hope for him in case she doesn't make it through the challenging. Even if it means potentially not coming true, I don't know, Teller could have really used this right now.
Thank you for admitting that you would have told me, because I would have been so fucking mad if you hadn't.
I would have absolutely told you after I got confirmation from the orb of answering.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Big Sis.
Of course.
You're good to me.
But back to restarting the house receptions after only 4 days of mourning. Diem is still caught between numbness and seething rage at the Descended, specifically suspects of her father's murder, like House Hanoverre, who we're meeting with first after the brief morning break.
Side note, I also think that there's a possibility that Diem is only looking at it as a Descended murderer. That could be a neon sign that it's the Guardians, because that's like an unreliable narrator situation. While the meeting with the Hanoverre house starts off nice and cordial, with Remis and Marth discussing appointing a Hanoverre to the councils they requested, not the Crown's council, but something else, so long as the Hanoverres accept the terms for the silk shipments. Dang! What a productive meeting this has been. But wait, there's more. After discussing with Evrim post-meeting, again another huge hint that they might have been working together, House Benette and House Hanoverre agreed that the mortals' terms are not sufficient. So, the House Hanoverre request is quite simple. All the mortals be exiled by the end of the year, which is less than 2 months away. And this is not a request. This is a demand. And they demand a bonded bargain to ensure the Crown's commitment to making sure it is done.
Oh, this is a huge realm-altering demand they just saved for last in this meeting. First of all, I believe they saved it for last to come off like they're playing nice, to make Remis in particular fall into an agreeable trap after they had a relatively normal and agreeable discussion leading up to it. The bigger question is, why now, during this house reception, is House Hanoverre demanding mortals to be exiled from Lumnos? Why haven't they done this before? Number one, I do believe they have pushed this on the Crown's Council in the past, and this was part of King Ulther's compromise for the progeny laws. And Hanoverre was definitely not in a position to threaten or push the king because he was the reigning king and quite a bit of power. But now the political landscape is shifting big time. No matter who the crown is, I believe House Hanoverre would have tried something like this because with or without Diem, they are hateful toward the mortals and want them gone. However, this is Diem, and she is a crown who outwardly favors the mortals, and this is during her most unstable time in power. She is still unchallenged, and instead of it being a high request like I think it might have been with a different crown, House Hanoverre makes this a demand for a bonded bargain right here and now, no ifs, ands, or buts, because they need Diem to prove she is detached from the mortals.
Diem holds completely silent during all of this, and the silence does several things. One, it allows the Hanoverres to get all their stupid words out, and they're also most likely expecting Diem to snap, to get angry, to react, to have the emotional, set off that she has been known to have. But by her staying silent, She's getting them to be like, hello, can you react, please? And no one is wanting Diem to speak up more than Remis, who sends back a counter offer. What if we close all of our borders? That way there's no new arrivals that can come in. And then what if they also outlaw procreation? That way they die out naturally.
First of all, that is, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's once again showing just how different these lifespans are and how they so casually believe they can completely control the mortals. Like, let's just outlaw procreation. Mortals are an inconvenience to the descended. They are not actual people to them.
And when House Hanoverre says that compromise is not sufficient, we demand that they are exiled, and we demand an answer today. I'll give it to Remis that he was not immediately like, yeah, sure, let's do a bonded bargain. This way it'll ensure that Diem doesn't get challenged. I'll say that, and then I will absolutely give this huge, huge, huge asterisk below it. He's still talking about the exile and genocide about who knows how many people. Yep. Wow.
And outlawing procreation, you know what that would mean. Yeah.
All of this is with the counter that if she does not say yes and do the bonded bargain, again, today, Jean will rep House Hanoverre at the challenging. Now pause, because Ileana says, quote, a well-placed source tells me you can't even control your magic. Who is this well-placed source? Is it Remis? Is it Aemon? We know that Alix, Terran, and Luther all made a bonded bargain together saying that they would not discuss Diem's training. So we know it's none of them. So I'm guessing it's Remis because we do know he comes in later, but that's not until like 2 weeks later.
I was wondering the same thing because I think Remis he does say later on that he knows this about Diem too. Yeah. With Ileana being in the royal guard and allowed in the palace, I bet she does have eyes and ears throughout the palace. And we do already know being in the dungeons is not subtle after Lily, Teller, and Diem got caught by Luther. So with this coming and going, especially with Lily, who we love, but we know she is not the sneakiest, I could see it catching guards' attention who answer to Ileana. Yeah. Aemon also is very close with Ileana, so he could have followed his brother and Luther or something along those lines too.
True. That's very true. Finally, Diem stands and still silently, moves over to the wine cart and pours herself a glass. And slowly, she begins to speak. Diem brings up how Andre, her father, was the highest ranking mortal in history. And he taught her how to fight all kinds of opponents and to have courage in the face of battle, especially when his principles of right and wrong were being challenged. Take that, Jean! I am so proud of Diem and how she's bringing up her father here and how she's holding strong. Like that 4 days after his death. I am so proud of our girl right now.
And it makes so much sense. He is all she can think about as she grieves for him, and she's so raw from mourning as she comes back to her responsibilities. And also, Hanoverre is the prime suspect, and I love how Diem brings him up to his potential killers and humanizes him.
Absolutely. She continues, saying whoever killed her father, Hanoverres, probably did it as a way to threaten her. But they made a big mistake. Because now, whenever her life ends, her father will be waiting for her. Oh, so this impending Diem death that the Hanoverres are trying to control her with, yeah, it's not going to work. Because she does not fear the loss of her life, especially in the challenging. What is Diem doing throughout this entire speech? She is not letting her emotions get in the way of her ruling the realm. And as much as Andre's words hurt her so badly a few days ago, she is putting them into practice in the midst of grieving. Go Diem. I am amazed by this girl right now. Diem says that she will happily make a bonded bargain with House Hanoverre. She will vow to protect the vulnerable and strike down the evil. She will protect the realm from enemies outside and within. And she will never, ever hold her own life over those of her people, mortal or descended. I love that as she says this bonded bargain, she's like, Hanoverres, take all the time you need to ponder this offer. It is the direct fuck you to the Hanoverres. We need an answer today. She's making them seem crazy, and I love it. The queen we need, everyone.
I also love how surprised House Hanoverre is by her response. Same. It really does show the way of the descended. Diem even wonders if they thought they had her, that their threat would work to challenge her if she doesn't follow through with this bonded bargain to exile the mortals. But like we've talked so much about on this podcast, Diem, perhaps uniquely, does not value her own life or power status over others. She is the first crown in centuries, maybe even millennia, to genuinely promise to do everything she can to protect all of her people. Not compromise, not play these political games, not treat the mortals like second-class citizens. And this throws the descendant off, who innately view the mortals as second class, who strive to have political influence. They don't know how to get her.
And as Garath and Remis start to stand up to like escort them out, she's like, stay. No, you do not go. Like, the guards will escort them out. Like, that was fucking brilliant.
The guards will escort them out. Like, oh my God.
So good. Oh my God. Anyway, with the Hanoverres leaving, their tail between their legs at the failedness of their bargain, this gives Diem an opportunity to face her advisors. It will come as no surprise to us readers after Diem's speech and after her coming clean, this is just with her found family, that her loyalty is with those people who need her protection. Not the houses, definitely not the descended, and not even the kindred themselves. But her cadre is all too happy to support her even more with loyalty for her. Not even giving her the opportunity to finish her sentence before they agree that they will choose her over any loyalty they have to their family. And to Diem, this is a huge deal. Family is everything to her. It is filled with loyalty and unconditional love. But to the descended, they make familial bonds not by blood, but instead by choice. They are raised to always think of the betterment of their house. But the way I look at it, it's like their house is almost like their job environment, and their family is that home environment. And the home environment is the one that they choose regardless of last name. So here the Corbois are saying, we choose Diem, both as family by choice and also as the last name loyalty, not the house. I love this found family.
Let's move to our second funeral scene of this book. Friends, we are gathered here today in honor of Andre Bellator. Diem and Teller needed closure and have decided to hold a funeral for their father so they can say their goodbyes. Remember how they didn't have one for their mother because they never knew if she was alive or dead. And here they most certainly do know, and they need this for themselves and for his formidable and extraordinary memory. In the crater where their home used to be, they buried the twin daggers that Diem had stolen from their father many years ago. It's all they have left of him, what with their house getting destroyed. Moira and the healers are here, as well as some of Andre's old friends in the army. There is also a small group of descended here, including Diem's inner circle, Luther, Eleanor, Taryn, Alix, and Lily, and a few of Teller's Corbois cousin friends from school. Oh! And the descended are wearing black, understanding the respectful meaning it has for the mortal culture. This small gesture speaks volumes. Diem and Teller decided not to reveal the true nature of their father's death, as much as they hate to disservice him like that. But this murder could cause far-reaching consequences, and Diem has enough to deal with between the mortals and the descended already. And honestly, I get it. Both the hurt that they have to cover it up by saying a knocked-over candle caused a house fire, and the reasoning behind having to hide the truth. Question for you, Nicole. Do you think the truth about Andre's murder will be revealed, I'll say publicly, among the mortals in Burned? Because I kind of wonder if it will, and it'll stir up some problems.
If it is the Guardians, absolutely yes. Because I think that will take a lot of the Guardians to another side. I think that will bring them
there's
to
kind of like
side.
the two parts, like there's like the two subsets of the Guardians.
Yes.
There is Vance and his aggressors who are now with Ophiuchi,
Yep.
and then Orly and the Arboro Cell and Breck and all of them.
Yes. Well, and that's why I think it will create a clear divide in who. So I could see it being released for that. However, if it was a descended killer like the Benettes, the Hanoverres, I don't think it's going to be released publicly because I just don't think it pushes the story forward.
Yeah,
versus
that's a good point.
If it's the Guardians, it absolutely does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is one very important person missing, though. And speaking of the Guardians, where's Diem's fiance, Henri?
I can't believe we're still having to call him a fiance.
I can't believe. Honestly, do we though?
We do, because when he's running away from her in a few chapters, she still calls him her fiance. And then when she's talking to Taryn, she tells him twice that she's betrothed.
I
checked. I checked.
As we learn from Henri's father, who does show up on time for the funeral, Henri is so angry these days. And I'm not going to entirely blame Vance because Henri is willingly following him and believing him and listening to him and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and Vance took an already very angry Henri under his wing. Henri has always felt this way about the Descended. And then when that young boy died and it really catapulted Henri's anger and rage at the Descended, that's when Vance then influenced how he could direct it. And it's all while fanning the flames, and Henri is now in an echo chamber with these very aggressive and violent thinking guardians. So it's taking what he was already feeling and really amplifying it and keeping him at that high, angry level.
Well, and because Vance is so full of hate, being surrounded and seeing Vance as a mentor, that hate and that fury is coloring Henri's vision to see the entire world through that lens. It's producing him to be this angry shell of the happy boy he used to be, like Henri's father is saying here to Diem.
Yep.
And pause. While we're talking about this conversation with Henri's father and what he's saying to Diem, he does not ask Diem this right out, but there is a heavy implication of, hey, I need you, Diem, to bring back the boy I once knew, the goodness in him. He says, quote, without you, ... I confess, I fear what he might become. Woof. I am going to look at this through Mr. Albanon's point of view, because I get why he's reaching out to Diem and why he's saying, hey, I'm trying, nothing's working, but you've been the tried and true goodness, please bring my boy back. He also doesn't have the context about the Guardians. He doesn't know about Henri trying to get into the ball. He doesn't know about the other things that have put a wedge between him and Diem. He also doesn't know what's on her shoulders as queen. He doesn't really know entirely the details of what's on her shoulders in regards to the challenging. And all that said, I am still giving Mr. Albanon quite the L here. Not for any of the above necessarily, although that definitely helped to tip the scale, but because this is at her father's funeral. She is going through something unimaginable, and he knows that her and Henri are engaged. He's got the capability to look around and see that Henri's not here, at least at the time of this conversation. Henri is not supporting her in her time of need, so it feels so unfair to ask her to bring his boy back at this time. Anyway, it's not until hours into the funeral and people are starting to leave when Diem hears Henri's voice. Look who decided to show up! Diem runs into his arms. Oh boy. His eyes are filled not with love, but not with hate either. So, yay, I guess? She immediately starts begging for his forgiveness. The last time they saw each other, Diem tricked him into letting his guard down, and then she had him dragged to the dungeon. So she's expecting to see some betrayal in his eyes. I get it. And, call me crazy, but I feel like your fiance would see that you're going through a situation, I don't know, like losing your father, when he himself has lost a parent, and any fighting words or anger, it can be put on the back burner, which he half does, I guess. But he does not once say, I'm sorry about your father. No, they go straight into talking about the Guardians and the opportunity they had for the attack and how she fucked it up. Again, priorities.
Okay. While I 100% agree with you, Diem is the first one to jump into trying to explain herself about the attack. The fact that she feels that she has to in this setting where it's always her fault, always like she feels that weight and shame, like it is very much in Diem's character. But no, Henri doesn't say, oh yes, we can talk about that in a few moments, but first, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry about your father. Not once, not once. He doesn't even mention her father once in this entire exchange. And the last thing Henri did say about Andre was that he's a descended puppet. It's like we all know he's not sorry Andre is dead because he believes Andre sided with the Descended, which is just crazy to think about because Henri used to be so close with her family. Like, he was like a second son. And
Vance happened. Speaking of the person who I want to throat punch, who else is here? It's Vance.
I'm willing to bet that Vance insisted on coming here because he does not trust Diem and Henri alone, or for Henri to meaningfully deliver the Guardian's request of Diem to make sure she sees it through. With that said, this is Diem's father's funeral, and Henri brought Vance, who openly does not trust or like Diem. I understand that Henri is easily impressionable, but this is like Vance is babysitting him.
Well, like you're saying, I think that he knows Henri said the Guardians are outside and ready to storm the castle to Diem at the ball. And so this is Vance saying, oh, well, that happened last time. I don't trust them to be together.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I also want to say Henri is very impressionable. He's also a 21-year-old dude. Like, I'm sorry, guy. You are running out of excuses just like Diem did last book.
Vance leads the conversation. Henri just shouts her name before Vance completely takes over, speaking for Henri and that he was willing to die when Diem begs Henri to understand why she left him in the dungeons and called off the attack. And then when Henri does speak, he's probably parroting Vance's words about how she could have called off the guards. Again, looking at this with such a narrow mind about how much danger Diem truly is in. All he and Vance see are her being the most powerful person in the realm.
I feel like it all goes back to this extremist black and white thinking that Vance is cultivating, and Henri not really understanding, because extremist Vance is talking into his ear. He's not understanding the real danger that Diem is in. He sees the crown and he believes Diem is able to say or do whatever she wants, despite what Luther told him at the ball in the dungeons, where it's like, she's in a fuck ton of trouble. Do you have any idea what she's doing right now? He's a chameleon. He's molding unintentionally to whatever he's surrounded. We're going to see this with him and Diem when they're left alone finally in just a few minutes. Now, I will give Henri this. There is this moment still with Vance, a part of the conversation, when Henri does start to believe Diem when she says she couldn't do anything and she doesn't want to turn her back on the mortals. Vance scoffs and Henri glares at Vance. And then Vance grabs Henri's arm and calls him in a warning tone, Brother Henri. We need to unpack this, because this is everything about Vance and his manipulation techniques that he's using, and that's working. Remember in our Guardian meeting coverage last book, we talked about the meaning behind these sibling names they give one another. And a huge part of it is to give the Guardians a sense of their own found family within each other with their same goals and values. But Vance here is saying, remember your family, Brother Henri. He's using it to say, remember you're on our side, not hers. And I am proud of Henri for fighting back to Vance and saying that he wants to hear Diem out after she threw him in the dungeons. You're about to take a lot of L's, my guy. So here's a yay, Henri?
Henri pulls Diem away to be out of earshot from Vance. So you hear that, friends? Vance is not present for this next part. After Henri hears about the risk Diem took to save him and the mortals at the Ascension Ball, he finally recognizes the stress she is under and acknowledges the difficult position she is in. Just kidding! He asks her about flame root because she promised him to get some. It has been just over a week, and in that time, her father died since Diem promised to help Henri get flame root as a way to prove that she's on his side and to keep him in her life. And he's been told by her and Luther how dangerous things are right now. Yet that's what his mind is on. She's got to get them flame root, and soon.
I hate how she blames herself after he says this. She's like, oh my God, that's right, I forgot. I promised him to do that. You're at your father's fucking funeral! Oh my God!
Yep. And why so soon does she have to get them this flame root? Why is it so important? Well, Vance says they need to act, aka use Diem, before the challenging, in case she dies during it and they lose their inn. Okay, deep breath, Lexi. Because from Henri's perspective, I'm not even wearing my Henri hat yet. If they can overtake the Descended before the challenging, then Diem will be safe from a challenging happening in the first place. While I will give him the benefit of the doubt and believe him on this, I also think Diem might not be challenged if she gets us flame root and we can overpower the Descended. That is absolutely secondary to the real reason, which is using her as a resource. That's obviously Vance's reasoning. And it's like, to rationale with jumping on board with this, Henri makes it about Diem, when he's proved time and time again that his priority is always the Guardians.
Yes. Oh my God. Like, I see this as Vance being like, well, if we get this, like, da-da-da-da. It's just another way of that verbal manipulation that Vance is steering Henri's thoughts.
Oh, see, I think Vance is saying, okay, we got to get the flame root for, take over and all of that. And it's Henri who's like, oh, yes, and we do that. And then she might not have the challenging. So this is actually for her own good.
Well, I'm about to hop on a broken high horse, but here we are. Have we mentioned that Diem has a pattern of clinging to Henri and everything Henri is to her and who he used to be in her life? Good? Yeah? You remember that? Because here we go again.
I get that this is in character for Diem, and she just lost her dad to the Descended, most likely. But this is when I want to reach through the pages and just shake her. Episode deja vu.
After the ball, this is before Andrei's murder, Diem told Eleanor that she feels like she's losing herself. She had a life, she had friends, she had love, or at least what she felt like should be love, all before the crown. And now she's terrified that she's losing all of that and herself in the process of moving into this new life. Yeah, because it's the polar opposite of what her life was before. And then her father died, and that feeling was amplified tenfold. I don't blame Diem for wanting to cling to the past. I really don't. Do I want to shake her? Yes, absolutely. I don't blame her, though. In her opinion, she's letting Henri and thus the Guardians down. What's the only way she knows how to course correct that and make Henri proud? Never forget the proud look that he gave her back in book 1 that I will never, that was a first smiting L in FFG history? Yeah. How did that happen? She did something to help the Guardians. And it's like, I feel like in her mind, the only way she knows how to make Henri love her again is to do something for those Guardians.
I won't even go as far as love. I will say accept.
Oh, God, that's even worse.
I know.
So here she is again, seeing that one-way ticket to getting back someone she trusts, at least, you know, right now, again, after the death of her father, she doesn't feel like she can trust any of the Descendants. She feels like all of them are evil, so she's looking to the polar opposite, which is the Guardians. She's clinging to what feels safe, aka Henri.
So Diem gives them a bit of information to help them. Hey, remember that failed mission to find the underground canals from Spark? Well, she can help them get access now, but only if it is done her way. You hear that, Vance? And especially you, Henri?
Should Diem open her eyes and see this pattern that she's in? Yes. If she had a girls' night with wine and intense girl talk, she would maybe realize this pattern of behavior. But she's not there yet. She's also in her early 20s. I don't like to use this, I'm not going to call it an excuse. I don't like to use this reasoning very often with books because our female main characters do tend to skew a little bit more mature, especially as their character arc grows. But I know when I was in my early 20s, I stayed with people who were definitely not good for me because I felt like I had to prove my worth to them. And I had girl nights with wine and intense girl talk. And it's like with Diem, she had to learn the hard way, just like many of us. This is why I feel like I am very defensive of Diem. She is really realistic, in my opinion. Her whole world has crashed down and then some. And this one person who has been her constant her whole life, I'm ignoring the last few months because things have been crazy for both of them. She is only human for wanting to keep her safe at her side, red flags or no. And when she finally realizes and opens her eyes, it is such an important moment for her character journey. I can't fucking believe we're finally gonna get there next episode. I'm so excited. I'm gonna step off my pedestal now and try to defend Diem and all this kind of stuff because at the end of the day, yes, there is a lot of red flags and we know this and all of this stuff. And thank God we only have the rest of this episode and then half of next until we get there. But now is not the time for us to celebrate her getting with Luther because she agrees that she will show Henri and Vance these docks where the royal boats are held.
When Diem alludes to Vance being a morally bad mortal, using that as an example that everything is not so black and white with, the Descendant equal bad, mortals equal good, it's kind of like Henri breaks and he apologizes for everything with his anger and things getting out of control. The good man in him deep down might know that Vance's strategies are too violent, or that he is frustrated with how Vance has poisoned him against Diem, and now he doesn't know what to think or who to believe about Diem anymore, and she was the most important person in his life. The old Henri is still in there. As he says, this is not the man he wants to be. Yes, he is filled with anger and hate, but there is light and humor and a caring person beneath. That doesn't just disappear completely. I also don't think this is him pretending with Diem. I have seen that floating around a little bit, that he's just manipulating her. He really does miss his best friend too. And they already got her to agree to help them. So I think this is him just kind of like collapsing, being like, I don't know what to do, Diem. I don't know.
As these two fall into their old behavior, a deep, passionate kiss is shared between them. The surprising gesture takes Diem aback so much so that her eyes open in surprise. And who do they find immediately? A set of blue-gray. They land instantly on Luther, whose eyes are filled with regret, hurt, and loss. A few nights ago, Luther confessed his love for Diem, and then her father died, and he sees that as a mistake that is all his fault, which we'll get into shortly. He was already beating himself up so much for feeling like he's lost so much Diem, and then this is just the knife twist. I will say, go Taryn for pulling Luther's arm and forcing him to look away. That is a good best friend move right there. But this hurt and pain from Luther did not go unnoticed by Diem. In fact, fact, Diem abruptly pulls away, feeling like everything is wrong in Henri's arms. Good, it is.
And this is the moment when Diem should be like, actually, Henri, we need to talk. But I will say, I think a big part of why she is holding on to Henri and their relationship is because if she lets him go, the Guardians will automatically see her as an enemy. I don't think that is a conscious thing that she is thinking because she's so needing to hold on to Henri and what she has left and her whole life is falling apart and all that. But I really do think that he is her only way to keep the Guardians from going after her too. I don't like making her life a lot worse with all the problems. They're already causing a lot of problems. And if she's a target as well.
Now, remember those docs that we were just talking about 35 seconds ago that Diem was willing to show Henri and Vance for Guardians business? Well, we are here, but there's one big ground rule. Diem will meet them far, far away. She will blindfold them and then sneak them very easily into the canal and out of the canal. That way they don't know where it is. She knows the dangers the Guardians can pull, and she is wanting to do whatever she can to prevent this bloodshed, despite her conscience being like, Diem, no, don't do it. So here they are, with basically mutually assured destruction. Diem can turn them in at any moment, and they can do whatever the hell they want on this boat, which is concerning. Diem is watching over them as they search this royal boat for when they borrow it and transport sensitive cargo. Diem! Alarm bells, girl!
The fact that she helps them with this without knowing what it is she's helping with, while acknowledging how dangerous the Guardians can be, I don't know if I can analyze my way into understanding her perspective for this. Like, we're really good at doing that, but I don't know if I can do that one. Yes, we have highlighted why she's fallen back into this pattern, and she's trusting Henri that this won't lead to her demise. But Vance is here, and he's got Henri wrapped around his finger. We don't trust him, Diem. You literally just brought him to the palace. I don't care if he's blindfolded. He's literally, like, planning to do something bad. I know that she ultimately does believe in the Guardian's mission, but she does not trust Vance. She literally just said how some mortals are evil and looked at Vance. And now she's like, okay, come on over to the palace. Friends, I cannot begin to describe how difficult these Henri hats are getting. I think I said that last time, but this particular Henri hat is one I've been dreading. Because while I can understand the meaningfulness of his character, what he and his beliefs stand for, and why he thinks it's Diem who is betraying their relationship and her people, putting myself in his position and objective-ishly analyzing his behaviors and actions, it's getting a little harder. But you know what? This is the last Henri hat of this book, so we can do it. And as we snoop around these boats, I figured a Viking hat is suitable. But this is a Henri hat in the second half of Glow. So this Viking hat, it's a drinking hat. And I'm literally having to balance two very full cans of Natty Light on my head. It is cheap, shitty beer, and it's connected to these hoses, so I will actually be drinking it this segment. Putting ourselves in Henri's shoes and Vance's and the Guardians, locating these boats has been a goal of theirs since halfway through Spark, when Henri volunteered Diem for the mission from the Mother of the Arboros Cell. At the time, back in Spark, Vance said about the Mother of the Arboros Cell, quote, "She's planning a significant mission to take place soon, and she'd like our help. We need a Guardian that can obtain access to the royal palace of Lumnos and find a way to move around the ground floor unseen. They even had a map to this location, perhaps that Orly found, I'm not quite sure. So, bottom line, now as literally the crown, Diem is in a way better position to obtain access to the area they need to find. And why do the Guardians need to locate hidden areas on the crown's boat to store supplies and people and borrow it? To get to Kareel, of course. With the coronation approaching, if Diem can survive the challenging, that is, time's a ticking for the Guardians' next attack. Orly is on Kareel planting bombs so it'll be the distraction they need to overtake the island during the coronation when all 9 crowns are present. And Orly needs rebel reinforcements. There's the Arboros cell, and here we have the Lumnos cell needing to prepare to get there as well. So how will they get there? by boat. So once they are on the island, they will have the numbers and weapons to take over the island and hold it hostage against the Descended. Oh, and another special thing about the Crown's boats, they won't get stopped by the army patrol. So it's the best bet for them to get safely and discreetly to the island of Kareel when other boats are not supposed to be out there during the days of Foraging Day and Coronation Days. Vance, and therefore Henri, refused to tell Diem this plan because the last time Henri told her the plan, she stopped it. And the last time they executed their plan, which was the armory, Diem risked the mission by running to save the very people they had just attacked. She is a resource, yes, but she cannot be trusted, specifically by Vance. He's Henri's babysitter, after all, to make sure he does not reveal too much to her while still making sure she helps. At least Henri pushed Vance to tell her, like, the teeniest, tiniest bit, which Diem's like, that sounds harmless. Yeah!
Chug, 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 chug. After Henri is done searching, he goes over to his girl and emphasizes how much he trusts her and believes she's working with the mortals. You better start drinking that, Lexi. Wow, how surprising. She does something for the Guardians and suddenly Henri believes in her again and, feels like they're on the same side. Anyway, how does he show this newfound trust? He reaches down and kisses her. I have a question. The way Henri is acting, it very much feels like he believes they are still together. And yet we have speculated that it was after the ball and, Diem throwing him in the dungeon. That is when Henri and Lana started up their togetherness. I'm not even going to call it an affair. Where do you think those two are in their romance, meaning Henri and Lana? Because I don't feel like Henri would be kissing Diem the way that he is if he's already hooked up with Lana.
I am steadfast in my belief they haven't hooked up yet. I think there's like a budding emotional relationship with them, but they don't hook up until after this, or maybe even until the attack on Kareel and, Diem's kidnapped. But I'm leaning toward budding romance now. Then Henri and Lana kiss for the first time, like right when they're leaving, because they both go to Arboros together. They both had a reason to leave Lumnos, so I'm assuming that they kind of went together as part of the Guardian mission, and then they fully get together on that mission.
I see them getting together, like kissing for the first time within these 2 weeks from her father's funeral to when they leave. I see that that's like the buildup of the emotional. Yep. Maybe in the second week, that's when they kiss for the first time, and then they fully get together in Arboros. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. As these Guardians search the boat and Diem inwardly thinks how she's never felt worse, someone starts approaching. Oh no, it's the guards! And of course, Vance's first reaction is to kill them. So to escape the guards and Vance, being murderous, Diem sneaks them into the staircase to the dungeons. Remember, this is how she found out about the underground canals anyway, when Lily told her that's the entrance to the secret lock to sneak lovers into the palace. So not to get caught, Diem urges that the three of them have to leave. So when the guards move to a different part of the canal and out of sight, Diem's like, run, Guardians, run! Eventually, they do outrun the guards, who luckily did not notice the mortals, though we will find out from Luther they did see the queen. I bet that, illuminating crown kind of gave it away. And then Henri and Vance, they outrun Diem. Because, yep, they're not just running from the guards, they are now running from Diem. They got what they needed out of her after all. And because I am still wearing this Henri hat, you all, I am absolutely covered in beer right now. I have never done one of these things that I didn't quite realize how messy it was. Let's look at this from the Guardians' perspective. Number one, they need to access this canal again. And in order to do so, they need to know where it is, which means no blindfold. This ensures they can go back the way they came and can find it again, without having to follow Diem's restrictions that make them not know how to find the canal. Number two, the fact still remains that Diem cannot be trusted to not side with the Descended. For instance, she was not willing to kill a few guards after all. God, I hate you, Vance. Number three, and since this is the Henri hat, well, friends, Henri's choosing the Guardians. Yes, after he just expressed to Diem how they will win this war together and make up for everything they've lost. But with running away from her, Vance consciously or unconsciously made Henri pick a side, Diem or the Guardians. And we all know that Vance and the Guardians will come first, for reasons we have explained at length. At first, I was like, oh, this is the last time that Diem calls him her fiancé. It's not. It's not at all. I do think, however, that final sentence of him looking at her apologetically before disappearing into the forest is a literal and figurative goodbye to these two. Whew! Goodbye, Henri hat, for the rest of this book.
Now it is time for something we don't really get a whole lot in this book, and that is a classic montage. In the next 2 weeks. That's right. We are now doing a 2-week time jump since the funeral. So it's about 3 weeks since Diem got the crown. Not much has changed in regards to Diem's mood. In these 14 days, the numbness that Diem has relied on for her sanity has solidified and expanded, despite her friend's best efforts. Happiness is as foreign to Diem as hope is right now, which she has absolutely none of, believing that in 4 days, she is going to die in the challenging. And yet still, Diem, in these 2 weeks, has been doing whatever she can to make the world a little bit better. This is why I love her so much. Oh my God. She's cramming as much protection and betterment for the mortals as possible because she truly believes she does not have any time left. And she doesn't know if the Descended are going to continue it. So she has the palace gardeners plant forbidden for mortals medicinal herbs and ensure that they will send all clippings to the healer center. These herbs are hawk's flower, star needle, and sweet blushroom. You know what that means. It's time for a plant watch. Hawk's flower, I couldn't find, but I found hawk's weed, which is a symbol of strength, determination, and resilience. Star nettle, which I also couldn't find, but nettle was used in old herbal remedies and is now considered a modern superfood. And blushroom, I couldn't find anything similar to it. So there you go. There's the plant watch. Diem has been spending several afternoons wandering the area around her father's murder site, hoping to find any hint of the killer's identity. Unfortunately, in Diem's explosion, she made it so any remaining tracks disappeared. Diem has also been bribing 2 kitchen servants to deliver a mountain of food from the leftovers at the palace to mortal families she knew was struggling. And the forbidden books on mortal history and culture that were in the palace archives, oh, whoopsie, those are mysteriously missing. And they reappeared on the shelves at mortals' schools with a note saying that they are exempted from the laws by the crown. Diem has also had Alix promise to take a more active role in supervising the mortal city guards, and even remove a number of guards who were notorious for being violent towards mortals. You can feel it in Diem's inner monologue. Everything feels so small and not enough, but these are no small things. I just want to give Diem a hug.
As the house receptions continue, we've got another one that needs to be discussed, and that is House Burnham, and specifically pre-made arrangements that Diem and Luther only find out about now. Quick recap that House Burnham is a small but fast-growing house with business dealings in almost every realm, and they specialize in pearls and emeralds. Their house leaders are mated twins, Rix and Raven, who thankfully did not go full Lannister, as their son is actually Raven's biological child with another unnamed descendant, and Rix adopted him as his own. I have questions about this different sire and how that all worked in this fantasy setting. Like, is there a sperm donor method, or did she have the child before mating with her twin, or was it like a threesome for the intention of putting a baby in her belly?
I want to just take a moment and pause and say that this is our jobs to analyze this.
Right?
I'm going to go door number 2. I think she had a child with someone else before her and Rix mated.
But they're twins, so I think they've been together, like, again, like Cersei and
Like
Jaime.
Cersei and Jaime style?
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go with, I guess, the threesome with you.
That's right? Like, that makes sense to me. Because this House Burnham has growing connections in other realms, Remis saw an opportunity for them to benefit his own house by marrying Lily to the twins' son, Roderick, who they brag is one of the most powerful descended in the realm. Roderick and Lily are to be wed after the new year. You all, Lily is 16 years old, and she still has, 2 years left of school? Think of that lifespan and having an arranged marriage. Ugh, Remis just makes my skin crawl. Luther's right, you bastard, Remis.
Not to mention this twin mate spouses, they say that Roderick is known to have quite the temper. Now they're saying this in regard to him having a fit over the wedding with the princess and how it might be called off because of the queen and da-da-da-da-da. And in his anger, he just might challenge Diem. But if Roderick does indeed have such a temper, think of the life Remis is setting Lily up for. We know they don't marry for love, but given that Garath is his older brother, you can catch my drift. Smiting L for you, Remis. Fuck you.
At the same time, this isn't exactly a surprise, knowing what we know about descended culture and especially the ways of House Courbois, where marriages are for strategic alliances, not love.
To Remis, this is just a typical day as head of the house. He has a daughter who, in his eyes, needs to be married off in some way that will benefit the House Courbois. Earlier this book, when Diem was talking to Eleanor, Ellibelly mentioned how she was concerned that Lily wasn't fully aware of what is in store for her as the only princess. This is exactly what Eleanor was referring to.
Jumping ahead a little, I'm going to pull in Lily's perspective on this arranged marriage, assumably once when she learns of it shortly. While Lily doesn't necessarily agree with the idea of an arranged marriage, she does believe that it's her duty to House Courbois, and she's ready to accept this marriage if it means helping her family. Lily will even state that she doesn't have to accept the marriage, she's not being forced into it per se, but she also acknowledges that if she doesn't accept it, Eleanor will have to, which doesn't leave room for any real choice, only the illusion of one. And Lily cares too much for Eleanor to make her have to go through with something that Lily refused. So she's trying to convince herself that, yeah, she does want this. Roderick's not so bad after all. And she wants everyone to just stop fighting. She doesn't want to be the cause of tensions in the house. House Courbois is raised to always put the family first, even if it's not what they would want for themselves. But who decides what's best for the family? The head of house. And in this case, it's Lily's own father. So because Lily wants to do what she believes is her duty, she will sacrifice her wants, like her relationship with Teller, which she knows already can't have a good outcome, for the benefit of House Courbois.
In Remis's eyes, he's just continuing the power that is House Courbois. Now, this is particularly a back alley deal coming into the light, and he's a little pissed off that this is happening. Because here's this queen who is so self-righteous and disrupting all of his carefully laid plans. AKA, Remis is used to Remis being in charge. We see this during the meeting as he looks at Diem with an order to stand down. An order! He is not the king, and he is telling the queen to stand down. Now, Diem brings up a very good point. Remis is not the most powerful. Ulthar was. Remis is also not the oldest. Garath was. So what makes Remis the head of the household? Obviously, it is his status, yes, but I'm going to take this even a step forward because this seems to have been in place long ago. I think that Remis is by far the most ambitious of these three Courbois brothers, and he has used that ambition to wiggle his youngest sibling butt to the top of the food chain, and he is really not enjoying getting stepped on by someone who has just showed up. And especially also not by his son, who is everything I bet Remis wanted to be, especially when it comes to magical power.
Well, and I bet he also secretly hates that his son is a half mortal. Yeah. Like, that's Absolutely. A family secret right there.
But Remis marrying off Lily, Luther's pride and joy of a sister is one step too far. So in this interaction, Luther draws the sword of Courbois on his father. Pause, because a Courbois only draws this sword, this particular jewel sword, in order to defend the house. And in Luther's eyes, that's exactly what he's doing. Remis is clutching to power for his own gain. And for Luther and Diem, that type of reign is over. Only one problem. Until Diem is coronated, Remis is still in charge. And Luther just made a big mistake by pulling his sword out. Luther sees it too. He knows shit is about to hit the fan, and he's going into full commander mode. They say you marry someone like your parents. Eleanor is to stay with Lily to ensure that she is kept away from Remis. Alix is to stay with Teller to keep him out of sight until the challenging. Unsaid, I'm worried my father is going to assassinate Teller. And Taryn, his best friend, the person he trusts most in the realm, is not to let Diem out of his sight for even a moment. And as for Luther, he is off to somewhere. It won't be until next episode that we learn he has gone off to Lumnos City to make a deal with every house who is planning on challenging Diem, giving away everything he has, including his hand in marriage.
With 3 days left before the challenging, Diem and Taryn are deep in magic training, right? Wrong! After weeks of no magic coming out, these two stubborn bulls decided to put the magic on the back burner and fight how Diem knows best, the mortal way. It's easier to fall back into muscle memory she's been honing since childhood than to allow herself to feel the emotions she's been trying to ignore. It gives Diem a bit of control back in her life. It's a familiar outlet, the only one she has right now. But ironically, as Taryn points out, pushing those emotions aside is the very reason she can't tap into her godhood and use her magic. In order for the godhood to feed off emotions, she must actually have emotions. And she doesn't, not anymore.
With Diem's mother missing, her father dead, her brother in constant danger, the mortals being possibly kicked out of the realm in a matter of days, Henri most likely giving up his life in devotion to the Guardians, Lily being married off, and Diem about to die in a few days. Yeah, Diem may have no shortage of emotions, but she's pushed every single one of them so deep far inside of her and locked them so safely tight that she's not allowing herself to feel them.
Honestly, I don't blame her. That's a lot of emotions, and it would be like a dam breaking.
Same. Again, this is why I keep going back to why I love Diem so much, because with everything that I just listed out, who wouldn't lock that tight so you can just function on a day-to-day basis. Anytime Diem tries to conjure up any emotion for her godhood to act upon and thus produce magic, it feels so dangerous, so out of control that she jerks herself back into the safety of that numbness. It's not even a conscious act anymore. She has done this so many times that it's a survival mechanism. Diem has basically just laid down and allowed the world to morph around her. Again, this is why I'm so proud of her for doing all the things that she's done for the mortals in these last 2 weeks, because wow, she is looking around and justifying that the world is going to be better off without her. Even looking at Luther and acknowledging that he is king the realm really and truly needs. But yeah, about Luther.
Taryn may approach a difficult topic about Luther with a joke, but it's the opening he needed to wade into these dangerous waters. Because this is Luther's best friend, his chosen brother, and his ultimate wingman. And Taryn has had it watching Diem put Luther through this suffering, especially when it's obvious she has feelings for him too. This calls back to when Luther told Diem that he hopes that she has friends like he did to care about her enough to tell her when she's being a blind fool. First of all, I guarantee Taryn was one of these friends who told him that about Ileana, and also, that's exactly what Taryn is being right now for Diem, the friend to tell her when she's being a blind fool. Time to lay it all out with her. No dancing around the subject. Luther is a good man who does not deserve the hurt that Diem is putting him through. He will stand by her side and love her while she marries Henri, and he will support her in her choices, but it'll tear him apart inside. And Taryn is straight up like, I like you, Diem, but I can't stand by and let this happen without speaking up against it. Finally, someone is telling Diem exactly what she needs to hear about Henri and Luther.
Diem had previously clutched to her questioning of Luther's motives, thinking the worst of him, everything as her safety crutch. If she doubts his intentions, then she can guard her heart from falling for this man. But in the week since her father died, that questioning has turned into outright anger. She's blaming Luther because before the meeting with the Benette family, she got absolute assurance from Luther that he is protecting her family. And the anger at her father's murderer spilled over into fury at Luther for not keeping his promise. And then stacking on top of that, his role in her mother's disappearance and the doubt that Aemon planted in her whenever possible about Luther's intentions. Stacking on top of it, also his role in her mother's disappearance. The doubt that Aemon plants in her whenever he has the chance around Luther. And also the secrets that Luther has been keeping from her. As she's retreated into herself and that numbness, these thoughts and these doubts have stacked up into a 10-foot thick brick wall that she has no intention of breaking down.
But if we're talking about Luther and hurting him, we got to bring up Henri. Because Taryn has some words about that too. When Diem's like, I'm betrothed, which, how are we still thinking this is going to happen after he ran away from you with Vance? Taryn calls out that Henri is a man who has not been here for Diem, despite being the person she's supposed to be closest to. You know who has been by her side, who is genuinely a good person through and through, who understands Diem, who will support her and her decisions no matter what? Luther!
Damn straight! Taryn also knows Luther is off persuading these fucks in the other houses to not challenge her, and he is giving everything he has in order to do so, while Henri could barely be bothered to be at the funeral on time because he was too busy with his top priority, the Guardians. Taryn is like, you idiot!
It's easier for Diem to deflect than look at the truth. She knows Luther deserves better than her projecting onto him and constantly making him out to be the bad guy to protect her own heart. But she is also grasping at the last of what she holds onto with Henri, even though she's finally becoming more unsure of it herself.
I will say this. Taryn takes it a little bit too far. He tells her to stop being a coward and to choose Luther. Now, in his eyes, he is looking out for his best friend. He is seeing the woman of Luther's dreams choose someone who, to her, is safe, and he thinks calling her a coward is going to jolt her out of it and make her open her eyes. But coward might as well be a trigger word for Diem. Way back in the dungeons when Diem first used her magic, it was Luther calling Diem a coward that finally got her to explode. And while the accusation from Taryn here does get Diem to have a waging war of emotions through her body, which is probably what he's hoping for in the first place, the one that prevails is fury. Fury at feeling like everyone else, now even her chosen family, is trying to control her life. Fury at not even being in control herself. Fury that it feels like even the pressure of the gods are weighing down on her and her love life trying to control it. Diem feels like she has such bigger issues right now that she's just like, I don't care. Just let me choose something that's safe. As Diem stomps out of the room, she lets her true hand show, though, saying that it's Terran's lucky week because in 3 days, both him and Luther won't have to worry about her anymore.
As the final house reception is about to begin, Aemon's like, hello, we had a date at the Ascension Ball, now you're ghosting me. He's not about to let his efforts at being in Diem's good graces go to waste. He's still on his own mission to be king consort, even if that means threatening and blackmailing Diem to make it happen. Ah! There's the sliming Aemon we've heard so much about. Physically grabbing her arm, Aemon pulls Diem away from her trusted circle, wanting her attention to be fully on him since he thinks he's owed that. This need to physically restrain her is really showing us how much control Aemon has lost over Diem and his true nature of what he's willing to do to get it back.
Remember when I said that Diem was basically laying down and letting the world kick her and move around her? Basically, that stops when Aemon puts his hand on her and outright threatens to blackmail her. Diem spins her forearm around, knocking his grip away, and then pins his own arm unnaturally behind his back. She says, quote, I don't care what you've done for me or what secrets you know, Aemon. You are not entitled to any part of me. And if you ever grab me like that again, I'll use my blades instead of my hands. My queen! I wonder if part of this reaction, other than it just being wildly justified, is also because of what her and Terran had in their conversation just moments ago. She is tired of feeling like everyone wants a little piece of her and feeling used. Cough, cough, like Luther mentioned, and that he mentioned he would also never do, but that's neither here nor there. But this move, again, very justified move, has Aemon boiling over in revenge. And, as we will learn, he now has a lot of leverage that he can use to fight back.
Remis and Garath of House Courbois are officially over Diem's shit and have taken back control of their house.
Well, let's just say, in a very short period of time, a lot of restructuring happens in the Courbois house. Aemon, he now has Luther's titles, including Warden of the Light, High General, and Keeper of the Laws. This means that Remis and Garath have full power over the Royal Guard and have full control over how laws are enforced, especially the progeny laws, which brings up a good question. Would he have relished in upholding those laws? When Diem clarifies that he indeed has the title of Keeper of the Laws, quote, Aemon nodded, his expression tightening into something unreadable. What does this mean? Do you think he would uphold it and kill the half-mortal children? I think if Garath said so, yes, he would.
Aemon already thinks that Luther is, though.
That's true.
Yeah,
but maybe
it's
that's
not known.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I think he would have at least had moral problems with it. I think he would have done it to appease Garath, because I do think a lot of what he does is for Garath.
He did run over a child with his horse and got mad that the dead child sprayed mud on his saddle.
That's from Henri's point of view. In Aemon's point of view, he
Are
said...
you defending Aemon right now?
I know, no.
What?
I don't know. This guy is so confusing. I don't know, because there's this questionable look in his eye where he's like, I don't know if I would uphold it. I don't know. Anyway, Aemon has never... I'm about to get mad at Aemon now. He's never spent a day in the Royal Guard, and now he was just made High General. This is such a fuck you to a lot of people, especially everyone in the Royal Guard who has been spending all their life, or at least most of their lives there. But this is Garath, especially Garath, knowing that they can control Aemon. And Garath now has control over the entire Royal Guard. We also know Aemon, his father, and Remis, they want people like Ileana and any other people, like maybe a cousin or two that they're close to, they want those to be moved into positions of power. So Ileana will most likely get second in command. Maybe this was one of the back alley deals that Remis and Garath did with the Hanoverres to make sure House Hanoverre would not freak the fuck out after their disastrous meeting. That worked out terribly. But Ileana, if she has that power, she could do anything in Mortal City to the mortals. That's terrible. Remis and Garath are also moving all of Diem's most trusted friends from her inner circle, disrupting any control she might have had over her own council. Eleanor is stripped of her Courbois name and forced to live with the unhoused. This is worse than even being a servant in the castle, according to the Descended.
What a punishment for her siding with the new queen. This is them not even putting her in her place, but displacing her entirely.
Luther has been stripped of all of his titles, and he now holds no official power in the palace. Considering he might be the next king, I'm going to say it. This is a very short-term solution that Remis and Garath are doing on their part. Unless they are planning on taking out Luther, which I'm not going to lie, I could see them doing.
I also really do think that Remis has lost faith in his son having enough power to be the next crown. He did mention that at one point where it's like, well, my son's not nearly as powerful as we all thought. And so I do wonder if he's risking that his son might not be the next one. And what if it's Jean Hanoverre, who, guess what, they're buddy-buddy with?
Okay. I took that saying back in, I think it was like episode 1 or 2, that he was trying to insult Diem basically and like put her in her place. But I could see it. I could totally see it. And then there's Alix and Taryn, who are now both under direct order of Aemon. And if they disobey him or even just piss him off in general, he can just relocate them at the drop of a hat. Something he would be all too happy to do with his little brother Taryn. He can also hold their current positions within the guard over their heads to further gain control over them. Basically, this is bad. Really, really bad.
So TLDR, Diem has to win the challenging in 2 days, or else everyone she loves' lives are ruined forever, or until Luther becomes king after the challenging, like we were just saying. I can't even imagine this kind of pressure, especially with her inner circle feeling the strain too, and doing what they can to support her. But at the end of the day, it's up to Diem to tap into her magic and win, which, poor Teller's approach of insisting she has to win as if she doesn't fully understand the consequences, it really does backfire, because all he's doing is adding more weight to her shoulders and making the obvious painfully clear. It's okay, Teller, you will change tactics soon and it'll work.
Overwhelmed to the nth degree, Diem reaches for the presents from the Ascension Ball and grasps this small compass, the fantasy compass. With her heart in an utter frenzy, she needs something to tell her what to do, what she wants. And as her mind spins, her mind starts to think about this compass pointing towards who she wants. Is it going to be the man she's running towards or the man she's running from? I love that you're not really sure which one is which when you're reading this. It's so good. But then the compass's arrow slams to a sudden halt. I love how this is written because with the subsequent nature of her thoughts, it seems like the compass is going to take her straight to Luther. This is romantasy after all. So Diem runs to Sarai and hops on. Sarai seems to know exactly where she needs to go with the magic of the compass and their bond. The Gryver begins flying towards Mortal City and realization hits Diem. The compass is taking her to Henri. Panic and the urge to turn around hits her with a brick wall. That's not very good. And this, by the way, she still called him her betrothed earlier this day. But then Sarai banks, thank God, and something far in the distance catches Diem's eye, a faint dark line of Kareel on the horizon. And as she gazes at it, she feels a sudden tug beckoning her towards the island and bellowing in her head, quote, "Come, daughter of the forgotten." Okay, is this a tug to her father? Is this the magic of Omnos and the kindred? Is this destiny? Is this the old land of the Everflame? Is it all of the above?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think that once when we do finally get to the challenging, which is here in a few days, she will finally have that moment where it's like, daughter of the forgotten, you are ready. So I wonder if this is like, it's guiding her to help her become ready. Like, it's like, I'm not going to hold your hand and do it for you anymore, but I will nudge you in the right direction. But then Sarai takes Diem to her old home, now a blackened patch of earth. And as far as Diem knows, there's nothing here except it does look like she sees a jeweled hilted sword that has gone into the dirt. And as we will learn, this is Luther's sword and it was his own little homage to her father. The guilt that he must be feeling.
But then it dawns on her why she's here of all places, and it shatters her completely. She doesn't want the comfort of a pair of brown eyes, or the embrace of her mother, or even the owner of this jeweled hilt sword. What she wants more than anything is her family all together again. She wants a home that feels safe and a joyous bubble that was the calm protection of childhood, the uncomplicatedness that life used to hold, and the love and the joy of not being burdened down by secrets, a war, a crown. And it is the only thing she will never have again. In this realization, a dam breaks free in Diem, and that pit of emotions she had the lock and key under, it bursts open and Diem falls apart, crying for the family she's lost, but more specifically, crying for everyone who she knew would suffer soon due to her failure. Note that this is not if she fails. This is that hopeless language, her already believing that she is irreversibly failed. And everyone, her remaining family, her Corbois friends, the half-mortal children, everyone around her is doomed. But thank goodness we've got a little brother who enters the scene. Little siblings for the win!
Diem doesn't feel like she has the strength to find the light. Then little brother to the rescue to say she needs to make her own. Teller has always been the most level-headed of their family, and here he is to switch tactics from earlier. Diem needs the talk like their father might give them. Keep trying, don't feel sorry for yourself, pick yourself back up, and again until you figure it out. Fight and survive. That's who Diem is at her core. She thrives with that mantra. And here Teller is to remind her of who she is and the inner strength she always has had. We know from Diem that she feels so broken. She's lost the fight in her. But she's also resilient. She's a fighter. And Teller is like, now you have to fight harder than ever. Yes, for everyone else, but more than anything for yourself. This isn't about trying. Do or do not. There is no try. Oh my God, I'm so sorry to the Star Wars fans. AKA fight like a Bellator.
No, there is one word that is not in the scene. Coward. Teller isn't talking to her as if she's weak. He's in fact saying the opposite. He's highlighting all the ways that Diem is strong, both in the physical fight and in unshakable will. After all, she's a queen, but more importantly, she's the daughter of Andre Bellator. Teller is reminding her of her why. It's not to evade death or to avoid failing more, but instead it's for those who need her. It's for those who are in power, who frankly have been empowered long enough. Diem is letting this knowledge and the shift in perspective burn through her. There's that word choice again. And at the end of the day, she agrees she would fight and fight hard and pray that it was enough. There have been many times in my life, I know your life as well, Lex, where things feel so dark and it's hard to see a way out of them. But much like Diem, I felt like I was a passenger for a while, letting life happen around me and felt like I was helpless to change it even when I was doing my hardest. But I had a reminder much like this. It wasn't looking back at all the ways I felt like I'd failed. Instead, it was a reminder of what light was in front of me, and it was up to me to create it. And while we don't know where you are in life right now, but if you are feeling like Diem in totality or in measured amounts, this is your reminder from us and Teller. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and as scary and as heavy as it seems, you can make the light yourself. It might look different than Diem, and it might not happen on the first try, but it is there for you, and we believe in you as much as Teller believes in his big sister.
Later that evening, Diem's with Sarai and taking comfort in their connection, knowing that even though she has been struggling with her own emotions, Diem's never truly been alone. Sarai has been there every step of the way, even when everything else around her seems to be falling apart. And she doesn't have to explain her feelings or be misinterpreted. Sarai simply knows from their bond. That in and of itself is a sense of comfort. I also love that she finds a sense of comfort in the small things, I'll call it, right after this conversation with Teller. You could already feel a mindset shift for her. But you remember that orb of answers that Diem was gifted by Sofos last episode? Well, she's been staring at that orb for an hour, absolutely terrified, but also intrigued to know what answers it might give her. Specifically, one answer. Because she knows that if she asks it and the answer is no, she's going to spiral right back down into the dark place she just fought so hard to crawl out of. So Diem is stuck in this moment, knowing on one hand the orb could give her the answer she desperately craves to be true, or it could give her the answer she's terrified might be true and shatter her into a million tiny pieces.
So she rallies her courage with the support of her beloved Gryvern, and Diem asks the question, is her mother still alive? And as the orb comes up with the answer, it spirals and symbols weave through the orb's surface in a language she doesn't recognize. I would bet anything that this is the original language of the Kindred, aka the language that is etched on the sword from her vision, and I guess also her father's murder weapon.
Well, okay, so I have a question mark next to that, because I don't feel like that would be easily replicable. Like, people just, as far as we know, people don't just know the Kindred's language.
But given that this is an orb that a descendant of the Kindred has to know the answer to, I totally see the Kindred's original language being on the surface of the orb.
Okay, I do agree with that. I think I was thinking more along the lines of the murder weapon, like the scroll work that is engraved both in Doriel's coronation gift blade as well as the murder weapon for Andre.
But anyway, nonetheless, that's not what Diem cares about right now. The thing she cares about is the one word answer, and that is yes.
Yes, her mother is alive. Yes, Diem can still hope to see her mother again. Yes, if she survives the challenging, Luther will help bring her mother home. Yes, what's left of her family can still be reunited. Yes, she still has a parent in the world. We've talked plenty about Diem's complicated feelings toward her mother since the beginning of Spark, but ultimately, she's a daughter who needs her mom. And this confirmation that her mother is still alive gives Diem something to look forward to, hope to hold on to when she desperately needs it.
But then an idea pops into her mind. So holding the orb up to the moon, its reflection, bright, alone, in its surface, Diem asks another question. The man who sired her, is he still alive? This time, the ancient symbols seem to take a little longer to find the reply. I'm guessing this is because he's very old and very, very, very possibly Omnos / the Kindred himself, or is it because he's trapped behind Godstone?
I think it's a mix of trapped behind Godstone, lost to history, and even the curse itself that locked him here. There's otherworldly magic at play, and
That's
I think
true.
that might be what it's like having to go through with that murkiness.
But after this long moment, a single word takes its place, and that is yes.
Diem was already informed of this in Chapter 1 of Spark when Yourcell told her that her real father is waiting for her. But Diem needed to know for herself. And whoo! Here we go for a setup with heat.
And that's it. Those are the two questions she asks. But if you're wondering, there's one left. Yes, have we mentioned that we think that one question that's left in the orb is going to come back into play in Burn? Because yes, we do think it is.
In this magic field segment of the episode, let's tap into our Umbros magic and turn our full attention to important foreshadowing moments for the rest of this book and series, including speculations for Book 4, Burn of the Everflame.
Less foreshadowing and more literary symbolism that could be foreshadowing. Eleanor mentions how everyone believes the Corbois sigil of the Phoenix represents dying and then coming back to life. But she believes, quote, it's a symbol of surviving when the world burns around us. We're not reborn in the flames, we're revealed. Flames! The next book is Burn of the Everflame, where Diem will literally be reborn in the flames. But also, this is very interesting to me that the Corbois symbol is so rooted in fire. Could this be an Everflame connection?
I'm going to take this a step further. Maybe that's why the Corbois are so often the most powerful house and therefore the crown.
Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot. Teller learns about the Sofos descended being at the ball and how he can come to, and then Diem cuts off Lily. She believes that she's protecting her brother, yes. And when Teller does learn about this information that he was invited to study in Sofos, it will break him to know that Diem not only held it back, but forgot after this exchange. Ooh, that's a tough look for Diem. Right after this, we do get a mention of Teller being on her advisory council. Yet another mention in fact. I am convinced this is going to happen in like the epilogue or the very end or whatever.
Luther's skin is unscathed when he walks into Diem's explosion of power. That's because her magic won't hurt those that she cares about.
Everything in the interaction with Lana at the funeral, how she looks incredibly uncomfortable, how she asks if Diem still loves Henri, how Diem is assuming that they're definitely friends.
Yep, I know she's been there for him through this whole Diem betraying him thing because they're already friends and he is falling out of love with Diem and gravitating toward Lana. Again, I don't think they've officially hooked up yet, but the emotional connection is definitely there.
Yeah. As Henri, Vance, and Diem are all fleeing the docks, Diem uses a bloodlock to open a door, which Vance is like, I'm cataloging that. And at the beginning of Heat of the Everflame, Vance will try to steal blood from Diem gruesomely, which sucks for you, Vance, because blood only willingly given will open bloodlocks. Now, I have been waiting for this speculation. In chapter 34, when Diem and Eleanor are talking about blood ties and chosen family, Diem, in a point to make it clear that her and Eleanor are family in every sense of the word, Diem will make a cut along her and Eleanor's palm, and then they grasp hands with the emphasis of Diem now having Corbois in her veins, and Eleanor having Bellator blood in hers. I think that this is so important. We know that Diem's blood is very special, especially when it comes to curing godstone wounds. So here's my theory. I think that in Burn, Eleanor is going to get stabbed or cut with godstone. Honestly, I could see this being at the hand of Remis or Garath or another Corbois. but it won't kill her because she has Diem's blood in her veins.
I think that is a small detail that would be quite the Easter egg.
I think so too. Eleanor saying how House Lane is the perfect house to end on because they never feud with anyone. And then Diem says, quote, which means I'll likely end this one with an actual blade in my chest. Well, Ron Ghislaine will be the person Diem ends up fighting in the challenging next episode. I love how she mentions this episode that they're completely forgettable, which is just extra cherry on top. But Ron actually does end up getting a slice into Diem's chest with a very particular blade that is literally half a sentence next episode. I can't wait to talk about it.
Looking around the crater that was once her home, this is several weeks after the funeral, Diem notices that the circle that had been covered with a hard layer of glittering onyx rock, aka godstone, although she doesn't know that yet, in its raw unmolded form, it's all gone. This is because Alix has gone and mined it up in the hopes of using it for armor in the upcoming war.
After Teller's speech to Diem, she reaches down and takes a fistful of the soil that made up her childhood home and all the lessons her father taught her. At the challenging next episode, Diem will sprinkle that dirt over the arena floor, allowing it to act as her anchor to remember all of Andrei's teachings. It is time for us to enter the Sofos Library, where each episode, Lexi guides us through a world-building topic to help us deepen our understanding of the world, its magic, and most specifically, its people.
Today's Sofos Library topic is the 20 houses. Fitting for these house receptions, right? So first things first, what are the 20 houses? The 20 houses are the 20 most powerful descended families in all of Lumnos. We don't know a whole lot about their sizes, but there are hundreds of courbois, for instance. So I kind of have the impression the more influential the houses are, the larger they are, but I can't confirm that. Within the 20 houses, there are two distinct groups. The top 5 most powerful houses, which are the true makers of all the decisions, followed by the remaining 15, which will, for the most part, agree with anything that the top 5 houses agree on. There are other houses outside the 20 houses, but they are inconsequential. It's a big deal to become one of the 20 houses, and while it is rare, being in the 20 houses can change hands. Houses at the bottom of the 20 houses are always trying to prove their worth to stay, never stepping on toes and just going with the flow to give the royal family and the other houses no reason to remove them for what little power they have. Marriage between the 20 houses is fairly common, but a large number of these marriages are purely for politically advantageous reasons. These reasons may include, but are not limited to, securing power, influence, or forging alliances for the benefit of both the houses, whether that's a change in status for a lower house marrying up or a higher house marrying down to secure an alliance with a smaller house's resources, their network, business dealings, exports, etc. Another reason is securing succession. While the crown is not guaranteed to go to anyone, marriage is for the sole purpose of having the potential powerful child, who might be powerful enough to take the crown, are common, and especially remember, the more powerful you are with your magic as a descended, typically the higher up you have politically standing. Two other reasons that we don't see plainly in the book but are relevant to marriage alliances in our history is preventing or ending conflict between houses and consolidating wealth. With how focused the descended are with power and wealth, I could see them wanting to merge wealthy families through marriage because it can create stronger financial stability and control over trade or land. We know from Diem's Ascension Ball that some of the houses have business dealings outside of Lumnos and work closely with these descended in other realms as well. Let's go through what we know about the 5 most powerful houses. House Courbois, the royal house. Their head of house is Remis Courbois, and Garath also holds a lot of power as his second, essentially. The Courbois sigil is a crest encasing the outline of a phoenix. Its flaming wings spread wide as it emerged from curling wisps of smoke. 2 tiny sapphires mark its eyes, and a dark ruby lay over its heart. The Courbois are actually the most sympathetic to the mortals, which is unfortunately saying something. They allow the mortals to stay in the realm, but they do view them absolutely as below the descended. After the Blood War, several of the houses wanted to ban mortals, but House Courbois wanted to declare amnesty and move forward, compromising with the current laws. We were speculating earlier about why maybe House Courbois is frequently the most powerful who gets the crown. I wonder if maybe that they're the most sympathetic to the mortals is another reason why they frequently get the crown. Then we have House Benette. While one of the most powerful houses, they are known to be the easiest to manipulate because they always go where the money is. Their head of house is Evrim Benette, Benette, and their resource is, of course, supplying weapons for all of Lumnos as well as many of the other realms. They want the mortals completely removed from the realm and the guardians found and executed, especially because Evrim is a target of the rebels with his weapons. And now we have House Hanoverre. Marth Hanoverre is their house leader, and their sigil is a single drop of blood on a white rose. They claim they've had no mortal blood enter their line since Lumnos' mortal lover, so that single drop is the only impurity they'll ever have. We know this is a lie with Zalaric, but we will get to that next book. Their business dealings are in silk, at least that's all that we know of so far from their house reception. They are the third most powerful house in the realm, and the Hanoverres hate the mortals the most out of any of the 20 houses. They have had a good relationship with House Courbois. In fact, they had a marriage agreement in place when Luther was thought to be the heir to the crown. The other two houses in the top 5 are House Tanir and House Amrau, but we don't know anything else about them. What we know about the remaining 15 houses is not much, and honestly, we don't even know the names of most of them. We have House Burnham that we were talking about earlier with the mated twins, Rex and Raven Burnham, and their business is in pearls and emeralds. They are small, but they're growing fast, and they have business dealings in almost every realm, and they had a good relationship with House Courbois because they had a marriage agreement with Remis for Lily and their son. And then lastly, we have House Ghislaine. With their sigil, all we know is that it's golden. That's it. And their house's resource is shrewd dealings in gold, whatever that means. They are the bottom house of the 20 houses, and that leaves them fairly vulnerable. They have avoided the topic of the mortals. They try to stay in everybody's good graces. Although with Ron, we can see how little House Ghislaine thinks of the mortals. And by being the most vulnerable of the 20 houses, House Ghislaine kisses House Courbois' butts because, again, they want to stay in their good graces. And that is what we know about the 20 houses of Lumnos.
Let us close out this episode with skipping around the apple orchard and discussing our favorite moments from this stretch of chapters.
We get a "Who Hurt You?" from Luther. Might not be in the usual context, but it's kind of satire, and I like it, and I find it funny. And Taryn follows up with creating light magic and is like, okay, who do we have to kill? Is it Aemon?
Luther telling Andre not to call him Your Highness, but instead to use his name, Luther. Oh, my heart! Luther's insistence on titles is known around the palace of being borderline pathological, but the way he wants to impress Diem's father and be kind to the most important man in Diem's life vastly outweighs the need for formality. After all, last night he professed all his devotion to this man's daughter, and of course he wants Andre to like him. I love this man! I didn't get to gush about Luther too much this episode, so I'm making up for it right now.
On that same note, just the way Taryn and Eleanor are getting to know Andre. They bond so quickly, and while things take a turn for the worse soon enough, this is so heartwarming because it's such a your friends come over and your parents embarrass you moment. Which, by the way, I can't wait to tell my daughter's friends that her nickname has been Poopy Princess since the day she was born. Her first birthday was literally Poopy Princess themed, but I couldn't find many poop related things that were, tasteful. So it was like 90% princess, 10% not princess.
I love this line. Again, it is one of my favorite lines in the series. Quote, "I was born a lump of molten metal, shaped by my mother, honed to a point by my father, engraved on the hilt by my brother." Oh my God, that writing. It's so beautiful.
I love it.
The constant battle of do I like Aemon or not, which normally is not, but today apparently is very questionable.
Which, what the hell? This is when he shows his true colors.
I know. But there's this moment where Diem hands Garath his own ass in a meeting, and this is post the Hanoverres meeting, and Aemon cracks a smile watching his father getting taken down a peg. And then his father shoots him a look, and the smile completely fades. I do not enjoy Aemon. I don't think he makes very good choices. But I think a line like this makes us see just how, I'm going to say controlled he is by Garath and all that Garath is scheming. So you know what I want? I'm going to take it back. I think we are getting an Aemon redemption arc. Okay, literally this episode I have been on a Henri redemption arc and a Aemon redemption arc.
I don't even know you anymore.
Look
what happens when Luther's taken away from the pages, everybody. My goodness.
Thank God. Next episode, he'll be back. I love that when Sarai throws the pillow off of Diem's balcony, she thinks that Sarai is trying to, play fetch. And then Diem says, quote, "Wait, are you trying to play fetch with me?" It just always makes me giggle.
All right, friends. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode 5 of our Glow of the Everflame deep dive. Whew. I really do think that might have been one of our toughest deep dive episodes to date.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you all. Thank you so much for being on this journey with us.
Next Monday, we are continuing with Glow of the Everflame episode 6, chapters 38 through 43, aka the challenging, my favorite arena scene in all of fantasy. I'm so excited.
Me too. We would love to give the biggest warm welcome to our newest Crowns Council members.
Welcome, Brianna, Eleni, Leslie, aka Les Slays Valaris, and Devin. Welcome.
We appreciate you so much. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for being part of this community. We are so happy that you're here. And friends, if you're like, hey, I want my name shouted out on the podcast and to be showered with all the love too, join our fan club at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. Link is also in the show notes.
Thank you so much to our Sofos top scholar, aka our content researcher, Brooke, and our executive producer, Hayden, aka our sanity manager. We love you both.
We are very active on social media with weekly trivia, games, and lots more. So please be sure to follow us on Instagram and /or TikTok at Fantasy Fangirls Pod. And if you're watching this on YouTube or want to watch on YouTube to see me get beer all over myself because I've never experienced a drinking hat before, please hit that subscribe button to keep following along.
You want to, trust me. It was so wonderful. While you're hitting buttons, please do not forget to hit that 5-star button on whatever podcasting platform you are listening on. And if you're feeling extra generous, write a little love note in the review section. I did that when I couldn't sleep at 1 a.m. last night, and it made me so happy. You guys are so nice in those reviews. My goodness. And last but not least, do not forget to share this episode with your fellow Everflame friends. Honestly, this episode was probably one of our saddest ones to date, but we at least got a drinking Viking hat. So if you want to send this to your friends so they can see it, there you go.
Also, Andre, if you were curious about who Andre's killer might be and you want to put your detective hat on.
That's true. We had 2 hats this episode. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
About this murder, first and foremost, I'm not going to actually use the pipe here.
For our audio podcast, I don't understand why.
I don't think I need to explain why this is fitting for Henri. Hold on, I need to drink this down so I can actually move my head.